The story begins with the main character, Han Daisung, and his friend walking together on the day before their high school graduation ceremony. Suddenly, without any meaning or warning, something strange began to happen to the guy. Something began to pull Khan in and transfer him to another place, and no one could help him. Sometime later, the main character comes to his senses and realizes that he is in hell. Daisung is in shock. He doesn't believe what's happening. Everything around him scares him. The guy sees huge monsters fighting around him, killing each other. Khan hides from them, thinking to himself why and for what purpose he ended up here. After 10 days of wandering, the boy realizes that he is hungry and needs to eat. In hell, there is no day or night, not even sunlight, so food is hard to come by, and the only edible thing here is monster meat. The guy understands that this is the only way out and way to eat. Khan bends over the rotting corpse of the monster and tears off a small piece of flesh to force feed. While the main character is eating, a monster appears behind him. Daisung turns around in horror and barely manages to escape the monster's attack. The only thing left for the guy to do is to defend himself from the monster by throwing stones. Finally, the hero manages to drive away the monster and remain untouched. The boy can't hold back his tears from stress, so he says out loud how much he misses his mother. On the 39th day of his stay in hell, Khan got himself some reinforcement to defend himself from the attacks of monsters. The hero notes in horror that in order to survive, he had to give up his humanity. On the 51st day, Khan had more or less settled into hell and had gotten used to the fact that he needed to feed on the remains of killed monsters in order to survive. Suddenly, a sign appears in front of the hero indicating that his level has been raised to the 3rd. Daisung looks at this in surprise, thinking that he has finally gone crazy. However, after thinking for a moment, he accepts the level up notification. After 7 years in hell, Khan is level 24, meaning he has certain abilities to survive. After 24 years in hell, Daisung easily defeats most of the monsters. After 51 years in hell, Khan became capable of killing an incarnation, which was not a difficult task for him. At the age of 79, Daisung has become strong and advanced enough to face the most powerful opponents. Now the guy has his own assistant who claims that it is time for an audience with the Demon King. The guy is glad that he will be able to meet the one who dragged him to hell for 80 years. So in anticipation, he easily defeats the small opponents guarding the castle. However, after the minor demons, the Demon King's gatekeeper appears, threatening Daisung with death. Khan does not fall for the monster's threats and engages in combat with him. However, the gatekeeper is incredibly strong. He easily throws the main character away from himself. The guy doesn't get lost and continues to attack the enemy. And his assistant notes that the gatekeeper is a tough guy and needs to be finished off quickly. The monster is furious that Daisung won't give up so easily, so he prepares to attack. However, something goes wrong, and Khan gets ahead of the gatekeeper, attacking first, literally ripping his opponent's chest apart with his sword. Daisung looks calm, not even tired after the fight with the gatekeeper. The protagonist's assistant tells him that after killing the gatekeeper, the Demon King will definitely be angry, which Han confirms. The assistant asks again if Daisung is sure that after killing the king, he wants to become the absolute ruler of hell, to which the guy brushes it off, saying that he is not interested. The creature asks Daisung why he is fighting the Demon King then, and Han explains that it has been 80 years since he was sent to hell. The guy continues by saying that all this time he has been fighting monsters to survive, and the assistant agrees with him. Daisung explains that everyone has different reasons for why they ended up in hell. That is why he has a question as to why and for what purpose he came here. The Khan smiles and tells his assistant creature that he will ask the Demon King about this, to which the creature replies, "Why not talk to the king politely?" The assistant tries to stop Khan, arguing that it would be better for him to beg for forgiveness on his knees. However, Daisung does not listen to the creature and says that the price for suffering must be paid. The main character takes his weapon and confidently heads towards the Demon King. However, at this moment, something strange begins to happen. The guy opens his eyes in a hospital in the real world. Daisung notices the IVs around him, still not understanding what's going on. Khan looks around and notes that he hasn't dreamed about Earth for 30 years. The exhausted guy wonders why he sees a hospital while realizing that he can't move. At this moment, a woman, Khan's mother, enters the room and drops a tray of food. The woman begins to rejoice and cries, hugging her son, and Daisung thinks to himself that it would be better for him to wake up now as soon as possible. However, the guy immediately wonders why he can feel everything as if it were real, since he is sleeping. At this point, Han comes to his senses in hell, where the assistant says in surprise that he didn't expect the guy to seriously kill the Demon King. Daisung doesn't regret what happened, saying that his body, split in half, looks better. The assistant asks the protagonist what he is going to do, because now he is the rightful ruler of hell. Before Han could answer the creature, a sign appeared in front of him asking if Daisung wanted to return to Earth. The guy still doesn't believe it and doesn't understand what happened, and the assistant is interested in the land, asking if the guy is from there. Daisung remembers praying almost every day to return home, so there is no reason to worry. Khan, without thinking, presses the button to agree to return to Earth, and the portal gradually begins to transport him. A moment later, the main character opens his eyes and sees a doctor examining him. The man moves away from Daisung and towards his mother and explains that due to his son being in a vegetative state for so long, it may be difficult for him to move at first, but that he will get better as he receives rehabilitation. The woman thanks the attending physician, to which he replies that everything happened thanks to her care for her son. At this point, Khan starts screaming loudly, and the doctors and the boy's mother nearby do not understand what is happening. Daisung doesn't understand when he managed to return home, and the patients in the ward nearby watch the guy with fear. The doctor slowly approaches Khan to help, but he is aggressive and demands that he not approach him. Instead of accepting the man's help, she bites his hand until it bleeds. Still not believing that he is home, Khan accuses the doctor of using some kind of magic or poison to immobilize the hero's body. Daisung starts to get hysterical, deliriously repeating the same thing about 80 years in hell. Not believing that everything that is happening now is real, Khan screams that he won't make it in time and asks to return back to reality from this dream. At this time, two orderlies enter the room in response to the boy's screams. Two men grab the protagonist, wanting to put him on the bed, to which Khan shouts and threatens them with death. Daisung is furious that he woke up in such a terrible, weak body, and while he is being laid down in bed, he looks out the window. At this time, something strange happens outside. A bright portal appears in the sky. The portal grows and spreads over the city, and the main character wonders where the wormhole came from. Meanwhile, the orderlies manage to put the guy in bed, but he starts to break free again, screaming that they won't live after what they did to him. The nurse injects a sedative through the boy's neck to help him come to his senses. Before passing out, Daisung repeats that he will get rid of everyone present, while those around him silently watch him. Sometime later, breaking news starts playing on the TV in Khan's room. The host announces that a gate has opened in Seoul, but fortunately, hunters have already been dispatched to the scene to clear the area. One of the hunters is contacted on the air, demanding a situation report, and he replies that the mission is in the final stages of suppression. The hunter is asked how much more time it will take to complete the mission. The man thinks and replies that it could take about an hour. The leader in charge of the hunters demands that he be contacted immediately after the mission is completed, and he will take care of the rest himself. The broadcast comes to an end, and the news anchor announces that the mission is successfully coming to an end and all consequences have almost been eliminated. By this time, Khan had already woken up and managed to listen to part of the broadcast, surprised that the hunters were operating in a wormhole. At this time, the very head of the hunters, a young man in a suit, enters his room and joyfully greets Khan. The main character looks at the man who entered and does not understand who is in front of him. The leader smiles and asks if Daisung doesn't recognize him. The guy looks closely at the leader and asks if it is really Chang Ho. The young man is glad that Daisung recognized him and asks about Han's well-being. The protagonist gets up a little from his bed and replies that he feels fine, and Ho replies that Han has finally woken up 10 years after his sudden fall. Daisung focuses on the time spent in a vegetative state. The protagonist recalls that fateful day 10 years ago when he and Ho were returning home. Chang Ho explains that Han was full of energy, but then suddenly collapsed. Since then, the hero lay in a hospital bed in a coma for 10 years. The guy thinks that, according to his calculations, he spent 80 years in hell. However, it turns out that in real life, only 10 years have passed. Han is happy out loud, but Ho doesn't understand what he's talking about, to which the main character waves it off and asks his friend not to worry about too much. Daisung thinks about his mother, who was worried about him all this time, so she had to get 2 jobs at once. Ho smiles and tells his friend not to worry about anything, because the most important thing for him now is to recover, and there is no need to transfuse Han with work, since Chan has already taken care of everything. Sometime later, the main character's mother helps him in a wheelchair for the sick, and they walk together. However, Khan is not at all in the mood for walks. He thinks that now he has to take responsibility for himself and his family. However, at the moment, the guy can do little, because his body does not obey him, and he is very weak. Daisung angrily notes that he could become a heavy burden on the family now, because in reality there is no less cruelty than in hell. Suddenly, 2 adult men appear in front of Daisung and his mother and greet the woman upon seeing her. The guy looks at the man and feels that they are dangerous and becomes wary. One of the men, in a black suit, asks Khan's mother why she didn't answer the calls and whether she was not going to return the money, while the second, in a gray suit, is surprised that the woman thought she could get rid of them so easily. The woman looks at the man with fear and apologizes, saying that she will definitely give the money back next month. However, the man in the black suit does not listen to her and reminds her that she constantly says the same thing. Khan's mother carefully takes the man's hand and assures him that this time she will definitely give everything back. Feeling the woman's hand, the man abruptly throws it off, shouting how dare she touch him. Han Daisung, who had been watching this whole time, looks angrily at the man who was treating his mother so badly. The villain in the black suit reproaches the woman, saying that money that is borrowed must be returned, and threatens Khan's mother, asking if she really thinks that they will treat her well this time. The woman starts crying and asks him not to sort this out in front of her son, and swears that she will return the money next month. However, these words do not affect the man in the black suit, and he rolls up his sleeves, angry at her. The man hits the main character's mother, saying out loud that perhaps this will help her listen to him. Khan, who is powerless to do anything, becomes even more angry and helplessly watches his mother being beaten, so he calls the men names. Two villains look at the guy, talking about him among themselves. Daisung curses men and continues to call them names. The hero's mother turns around in horror and asks her son to stop talking about men like that. A man in a black suit grabs a guy by the chest and lifts him up, threatening him. Daesung's mother looks at this in horror and asks her son to apologize. The woman continues to ask the man to let her son go because he is just a patient and has nothing to do with it. The man looks at the woman and says that all the large sums of money went specifically to his treatment. However, Khan does not seem scared and continues to call the villains names, asking what they are going to do next. The man looks at the guy and says that he is a cheeky fellow who seems to have problems with his head since he keeps asking for trouble. The man in the black suit smirks and threatens Khan, calling him names. The man throws the boy down roughly and yells at him, saying that Khan is now completely helpless. He continues to beat the guy roughly, saying that he deserved it. The man mockingly demands that Khan call him names again, but the hero can do nothing but defend himself from the powerful kicks. The guy deeply regrets that he can't do anything because of his weak body. The mother watches in horror as her son suffers and begs Daesung, the man in the black suit, to stop. However, the villain does not hear her and continues to brutally beat Daesung. Khan endures, but thinks to himself that if they were in hell now, everything would turn out completely differently. Suddenly, a sign appears before the guy's eyes, just like in hell, offering to start a divine quest. Khan is surprised, looks at this sign and thinks about the choice that suddenly appeared. Of course, Khan accepts the quest and suddenly, everything around him changes and he doesn't understand what's happening. The guy sees that everything around him, except him, has frozen, as if time has stopped. The hero assumes that this happened because he took part in the quest. After studying the test details board, Daesung considers the quest's reward of restoration, assuming that his body will be restored to its previous state. In front of him, Khan sees a red mark, the goal he needs to reach. At first, Khan looks at the suddenly appeared test with disbelief. However, then he realizes that for the sake of his previous body shape, he is ready to do anything. Barely. But the hero begins to crawl towards the mark, feeling that this is very difficult for him, unlike life in hell. Looking at the sign, the guy sees that there is very little time left, so he tries to think rationally in order to complete the quest. Daisung rereads the challenge and realizes that he can complete the challenge in many different ways, and he doesn't have to get to the point on his own 2 feet. Khan reproaches himself for having thought of this only now, when there is so little time left until the end of the quest. However, he does not give up and gets to his stroller, which will help him get to the point faster. Somehow the boy manages to sit in the wheelchair, although it is still difficult for him. There are only 10 seconds left until the end of the test, but Khan does not give up and reaches the checkpoint. After completing the test, a bottle of medicine appears in front of the guy. Relaxed, Daesung drinks the contents of the bottle. Immediately after this, Khan feels a surge of strength. He feels how the pain in his whole body has gone away and his strength has returned. It is at this point that the test ends and people return to reality, so the hero's mother and the 2 men look around in search of Khan. Daesung looks around, wondering where Daesung went. At this time, orderlies from the hospital run up to the villains, and Khan's mother approaches her son. Daesung glanced at the protagonist, wondering how he managed to get so far away from them. A man in a gray suit approaches his partner and suggests that they leave for now. In the evening in the hospital, Daesung reflects on how the window with a choice appeared in front of him, like the main character. I also lay in my bed after preparing this video for you, my beloved YouTube viewer. I worked hard and collapsed without strength, In a half-asleep state, I dream of only one thing: for you to subscribe, leave a comment and like. This will help me restore my body. All the best to you. Kisses, hugs, misses, love. The guy thinks that he needs to restore his body as soon as possible before the villains return, so he decides that he needs to create a quest for himself. Suddenly, the protagonist hears some kind of notification that the pantheon is waiting for him, and he wonders where he is hearing it from. Suddenly, his body seems to be transported somewhere, and he thinks that he is in a dream. A notice board appears in front of Han, informing him that an avatar has been created based on the information for training purposes, and Daisung feels that this is not a dream. First of all, the program generates a task for the hero: destroy the specified object, and a blue monster's face appears in front of Khan. Having gathered himself, the guy hits the object with all his might. After completing this task, Daisung is tasked with running 10 kilometers in 3 hours. The next workout for the main character is 1,000 sets of push-ups, which the guy does with difficulty. After completing these tasks, Han looks at the notification table and sees that he has only completed 55% of the implementation, which surprises him greatly because he has already done so much. Daisung continues to be indignant and asks to be given a normal task. The system listens to the guy's wishes and issues a new training, a fight, where, having studied the information, Daisung sees a target, a crying demon. At this moment, a teleporter appears, from which a monster, the hero's enemy, emerges. The guy recognizes his opponent and says that he almost died in hell because of him. The monster attacks Daisung and he begins to defend himself, noting that at this rate Han will be killed. Therefore, having gathered himself, the hero jumps out to meet the enemy, swinging his arm to strike. However, the monster easily counterattacks the guy, knocking him into the ground. However, Khan does not despair and is going to attack again, considering it humiliating that he is losing. The opponents continue to attack each other, when suddenly the monster manages to grab the guy. At first, the hero looks confused, but then he remembers how he dealt with the enemy in hell and got rid of him. At this moment, the monster's paw holding Daisung breaks in half and the boy is freed from its grip. While the enemy is recovering from the pain, Khan happily says that he completely forgot about the sword that can summon here. The monster comes to its senses and prepares to attack the guy again, but Daisung is ready for it. With the weapon, Daisung easily cuts the enemy into pieces, and after that a sign appears notifying about the end of the mission. In the morning in the hospital, the main character's mother wakes up from someone opening the window, but sees her healthy son. Sometime later, the boy is examined in the hospital. The mother asks the attending physician if it is possible for her son to recover so quickly. The woman still does not believe what is happening, that her son was able to recover in 15 days. The attending physician replies that he cannot say anything for sure, since from a medical point of view, such a quick recovery is impossible. The woman begins to get nervous and stutter, wanting to ask the doctor her question. As a result, she asks the doctor if what she thinks happened to her son is what happened to her. The man hurries to reassure the hero's mother, saying that usually some peculiarities appear, so she should not worry. At this time, Khan brushes off another examination, to which the doctor explains that the guy's condition and case are surprising. The main character's mother looks at this picture with intensification, sincerely glad that her son is okay. Daisung is glad to himself that his body is normal, so he decides that he needs to return to his previous state as soon as possible. As he leaves the hospital, the boy turns around to wait for his mother and sees her saying goodbye to the hospital staff. The boy hears a nurse reassuring a woman who has been waiting for her son to wake up for 10 years. Seeing his mother's tears, Han thinks about how hard it must have been for her all this time, so now he understands that he will protect her. A little later, going to the toilet in the hospital, Daisung calls a teleport to the pantheon, wanting to speed up the implementation. The system offers the guy to take a random test and asks him to choose the difficulty level. But the guy thinks to himself that he will finish this boringly as soon as possible. Once gathered, Khan selects the highest difficulty level, Hell, and an enemy begins to appear from the ashes. While waiting for him, Daisung stands quietly and is surprised at how much noise there is. However, looking at his current opponent, Daisung is surprised. He is shocked to see his own copy standing in front of him. His opponent looks strong and powerful. At first, Khan is not at a loss. Seeing his copy, he calmly calls his weapon and prepares to deal with the enemy. The fight begins. The opponents beat each other almost equally. The Khan from Hell continues to attack the protagonist, who notes that he is still weaker than his copy in his current state. The copy continues to attack, and Daisung smirks at how his own fake is superior to the original. However, the guy does not relax and does not lose heart, completely confident in his victory. Gathering his strength, Khan uses the Bloodseeker's Wrath technique. However, The copy is not lost and moves closer to attack the hero. Seizing the moment, Daisung manages to grab his opponent and slam him into the ground. However, the copy does not give up so easily, so it deftly breaks free from Khan's grip and successfully wounds the hero in the arm. The protagonist looks at the copy and assumes that it also uses the same technique as him. Daisung from Hell stops attacking the guy, and Han is already exhausted. Deftly attacking the protagonist, the copy places its sword against Daesung's back. Without wasting any time, the guy's opponent wounds him in the shoulder and raises his weapon to cut off the limb completely. At this moment, in reality, a cleaning lady knocks on the toilet, asking if there is anyone inside. Khan doesn't react at all because he doesn't hear her words, and the woman behind the door is indignant that the door is closed. The cleaning lady takes out the keys to open the door to the restroom. Meanwhile, in the Pantheon, the protagonist feels that all his attempts are useless. The guy is bleeding and begins to despair because if he loses, everything that was accumulated before will disappear. Daisung tries to find a way out of this situation, to come up with a way to kill his own copy. Suddenly, the hero gets the idea to look into the inventory. At this time in reality, the cleaning lady has almost opened the door when suddenly someone turns to her, asking if she heard her being called to the third floor, and she agrees, walking away from the restroom. At this time, a small teleport appears next to Daesung in his inventory. The guy extends his hand towards him, asking his opponent to wait, because he has not yet completed his task. From his inventory, the main character takes out a bottle of potion, which he receives for each completed task. Khan drinks the contents of the bottle and notes that 5 more of these will help him survive the fight. The enemy no longer waits for the guy and approaches to attack, but the protagonist dodges the copy's sword. Having skillfully struck the enemy from hell, Daesung is glad that he feels exactly what he needs now. The guy again reaches into the teleporter for the necessary potion. After taking out the vials, Khan takes the potion, realizing that there is no point in waiting any longer. Daesung, drinking the contents of the vessel, dodges the copy's attack to the face. The guy drinks several potions in a row, deftly dodging the enemy's attacks. Daesung is now able to parry enemy attacks, restrain them, and counterattack. The guy still takes potions to strengthen himself during the fight. While parrying the copy's blows, Daesung still realizes that he is inferior in strength to his opponent. At this moment, the copy grabs the main character by the neck, not allowing him to escape. The enemy is already raising his sword over the guy, but at that moment, Daesung calls his inventory. The inventory appears right in front of Khan, protecting him from the sword strike, but allowing the hero to pierce the copy's stomach. Daesung doesn't look tense. He doesn't feel any pain from the blow. Gradually, the copy begins to weaken because Khan defeated it. At this moment, the copy seems to be sucked into the protagonist's inventory, and Daesung relaxes. At this point, the system notifies the guy about the end of the mission, and Han feels that something is happening to his body. His body has returned to its original shape, which Daesung is very happy about, but at the same time, a little disappointed that his scars from hell are now visible. However, the guy gets himself together and asks the system to bring him back. At this point, a sign with an unread message appears. Khan reads a message from the system stating that hell welcomes its sovereign and the demons will await his arrival in the Pantheon. Khan smirks that he is required to help, despite 80 years of suffering spent in hell. Daesung gets furious and sends the system, demanding to let him out. Returning back to reality, Han begins to do physical exercises, and his mother, seeing this, is surprised because the doctor said that he is not like the awakened ones. The man explains that there are no specific symptoms of awakening yet, so the mother should not worry too much, but her son's current behavior cannot be explained. The woman despairs, saying out loud how this could have happened to her son. The doctor tells the woman that he did everything to help the guy, and a special association will deal with the rest, for which the woman thanks him. On the way home, Daesung thinks about the doctor's words about the association. The guy tried to pretend that he didn't notice anything, but still, something is wrong. The boy decides to himself that his mother is hiding something from him. Looking out the car window, the hero sees how the city has changed. Many destroyed buildings have appeared, and Daesung wonders what happened during the 10 years of his absence. Finally arriving home, Khan's mother tells him to rest for a while before she arrives. Entering the house, the hero sees a pink-haired girl and does not understand who she is. The beauty stands up and looks at the guy in surprise. At this moment, the mother comes into the room and, smiling, asks her son what he wants to eat, because he must be hungry. At this moment, the mother notices the girl and asks in surprise where she, Jisoo, has been all this time. The pink-haired girl timidly squeezes the money in her hands, and her mother accepts what's what. Daisung, meanwhile, looks at what is happening in shock and nervously notes how he did not recognize his own sister Jisoo. The girl, meanwhile, passes by her brother and tells him that he looks almost healthy, while for them, every day was like hell. The pink-haired girl goes outside and her mother rushes to the door to ask where her daughter is going. At this moment, someone knocks on the door demanding that the door be opened. Khan and his mother learn that these are the voices of two villains from the hospital. Behind the fence, a man in a gray suit threatens to smash the door if they don't open it for him. For some time, no one opens the doors, and the bandits begin to go crazy. Jisoo is still standing in front of the door, and she nervously asks her to come closer to the house. The man in the gray suit continues to break in, and Taesung asks if they're in the wrong house. At that moment, Jisoo comes out, unhappy with how noisy the men are, and walks past them. The bandits don't know who she is, but they assume that she is the daughter of the main character's mother. Without wasting any time, both of them go behind the fence to Khan's house, unhappy that the door was not opened for them. Daesung's mother begins to make excuses, saying that she couldn't call because her son was discharged from the hospital. The woman takes out several bills and gives them to the scoundrels, saying that this is all she has for now. However, the men are not happy with this and they knock the purse out of the woman's hands, and Khan starts to get angry. A man in a gray suit threatens Khan's mother, hits her, and shouts that she really thought they would come to her with such a paltry sum of money. The woman falls on the asphalt and does not answer. Daisung, seeing what was done to his mother, becomes even more angry, so he hits the villain in the suit. At this moment, Taesung comes in and sees his beaten partner. Khan looks at the bandits confidently, saying that he had been planning to find them for an hour, but they came themselves. Taesung remembers where he saw the guy and angrily asks if he was the one in the wheelchair at the hospital. Daesung ignores the question and begins to walk closer to the men, grabbing Song's face. The guy swings his arm to strike, saying that in hell he returned everything to those who hit him. The guy continues to beat Taesung. Despite the fact that the man is already bleeding, the hero does not stop and continues to torture the bandit. Finally, Han lets go of Taesung, and the man sees a chair next to him that he can use against the guy. An angry Taesung grabs a chair and swings it to hit the protagonist. However, the guy expects this from the bandit and punches the man in the face right through the chair. The bandit falls from such a blow, and at this time his partner comes to his senses. The man in the gray suit takes out a knife and provokes Khan to come closer. Daesung comes closer to the villain and grabs the hand that holds the knife. Daesung asks if this is the hand the man hit his mother with, and without waiting for his answer, he stretches the bastard's hand unnaturally. Seeing that they made him their partner, Taesung angrily tells Han that he won't be able to live a normal life after this. Daesung is not affected by the man's words and calmly replies that there is only one way in such cases: murder. However, the hero is stopped by his mother, who shouts at her son to stop. The woman tells her son that this is not right, so the villains quickly run away and drive away in a car. Among themselves, the bandits discuss Khan, his physical condition, and the fact that he was recently in the hospital. Taesung is outraged that Han is acting like this after 10 years in a coma, but his partner is more concerned that they haven't received the money or even the receipt that the boss talked about. Taesung replies that the receipt and money are not important now. The main thing is to defeat Han. But at that moment, the bandit's car drives past Jisoo, and the man comes up with an idea. At that time, in the Khan family's house, the mother says that she sold the house and left a small shop to support her son in a good hospital. The woman hoped that Daesung would quickly come out of the coma. However, the money quickly flew away, and the woman, on the recommendation of a friend, received a loan in the financial sector. However, repaying the debt turned out to be difficult because not only the loan amount grew, but also the interest on it. Khan asks his mother if his sister is still in school. The woman replies that Jisoo dropped out the year before last, and last year her mother got hurt while working at a diner, so her sister helped. The woman adds that her daughter has also suffered because she works at a gas station during the day and goes to the store at night. Daesung is outraged that her mother stopped her sister from being expelled from school because Jisoo should get an education, but the woman says that she tried to stop her daughter, but it didn't work. The hero's mother adds that he has no relatives, and perhaps something happened months earlier. Daesung is angry that his family had to go through this, so he says out loud that they should have left him. The woman tells her son to stop talking like that because they are family. Suddenly, at that moment, the phone starts ringing. The boy's mother looks at who is calling and says that it is those two scoundrels, to which Khan asks to give him the phone. Daesung begins to talk to the bandits, and they give him information about his sister, whom they have taken hostage. The men caught Jisoo and put her in their car, and threatened Han over the phone that he had attacked the wrong people. Taesung says that the main character has one day to get 100 million and contact him and asks him to be without tricks, because Han's sister is with them. After ending the call, Han looks angry and focused, so his mother asks what happened. The guy doesn't say what's wrong and is about to leave, but his mother wants to stop him. The woman asks her son not to leave if it is something dangerous because anything can happen. If her son goes to prison or somewhere else, she won't be able to live. The guy understands to himself that he won't be able to kill the villains because, after all, he's not in hell. The boy doesn't say anything to his mother yet, but he gets a notification and stops to read it. The main character turns to his mother and asks her not to worry and that nothing will happen to him. Having gone to a secluded place, the guy begins to study the information from the table, which provided a list of skills. After thinking carefully, Han Daisung chooses a specific skill for himself. At this time, the bandit brings Jisoo to his hideout, and the man in the gray suit hopes that Han will not come here. At first, Taesung looks calm and confident that Daisung won't come so quickly. But as he enters the elevator, strange glare appears everywhere, surprising the man. At this moment, something appears in Taesung's polygons, and he gets scared. Khan appears in front of the bandit, smiling at the bandit's reaction and saying that he was asked to come with money. Previously, the hero chose the Shadow Caster skill for himself. While trying this skill, Khan was surprised by its abilities. The guy opened a small portal to the shadows and threw a piece of cloth with Taesung's blood into it, and asked the shadows to track the bastard and transfer him to him. Thanks to this technique, the guy was transported straight to the elevator where the bandits and his sister were. The man in the gray suit begins to attack Khan. However, he dodges and counterattacks the opponent in the face. Taesung is amazed by the boy's abilities. He is nervous and scared by guesses about who Han is. Jisoo, who had been in the elevator the entire time, was as amazed by her brother's abilities as Taesung. Daisung turns to the bandit, asking what awakened means. At this time, the elevator arrives at the desired floor, and Taesung hurries to run out of it to inform his comrades about the unwanted guest. However, the guy catches up with him and knocks him out on the spot. Seeing what happened to the man, the partners, who had been sitting quietly until then, jump up from their seats and prepare to attack Khan. Daisung easily passes by opponents with the help of technology, deftly attacking and winning fights. Sometime later, the guy overcomes all his ill-wishers. Han approaches Jisoo, who was watching everything that was happening. The boy leans over to his sister and asks if she's okay. The brother pushes the tape away from the girl's mouth and unties her hands, telling her to go home. The girl asks fearfully what her brother is going to do. Daisung turns to his sister and says that he will be late because he needs to see something. This is the last thing Jisoo hears as she enters the elevator. The guy goes to explore the building where his mother's ill-wishers are located. As he climbs the stairs, the hero sees smoking men looking at him questioningly. Daisung mockingly says, "What kind of fleas are in this building?" Of course, the men react to the insult from the young man and are going to fight with him. Khan is prepared for this and tells the bandits that they irritate him. The guy easily deals with the men who stand in his way. At this time, the stranger's phone rings. A menacing, pumped-up man picks up the phone and sternly says that he asked not to be disturbed while he steams himself, but he is told that there is a problem and he should show up at the office. The man is angry because he is not a dog on errands, but he is told that the matter is urgent and the office is in danger. At this point, the conversation is interrupted, and the man stands up irritably, realizing that he will have to go to the very building where Khan is. At this time, Daisung continued to deal with the bandits, defeating each one. Now there is a frightened man sitting in front of the guy, begging him not to touch him. However, Daisung is not going to stop. He is extremely serious. At this moment, a man from the bathhouse breaks down the wall and bursts into the building. He doesn't stand on ceremony and hits the guy right in the face. Having slammed Khan into the floor, the man notes that he has gone completely mad. At this point, Daisung thinks that neither his mother nor his sister were surprised when he used his powers. The guy wastes no time and starts using the new shadow technique, thinking to himself that it's amazing that people like him can live peacefully with ordinary people. The man walks away from Khan, who was using the technique. He also notices that the hero has torn a piece of fabric from his shirt, so the villain notes to himself that the guy is quite clever. Standing up, Han asks the man if he is awakened. The man grins and says that there is no need to feel sorry for him and that he is going to send Khan to hell. Instantly, he uses some technique and becomes much larger, demonstrating the power of his body. However, Daisung does not lose his nerve and punches his opponent in the face, making him bleed. At the same time, Khan easily throws his opponent straight into the wall, and the man, in horror, does not understand why he is weaker. He doesn't have time to do anything before the main character attacks him in the face again with his foot. Khan gets angry, asking out loud how much this bastard knows about hell, and in general, the guy's family has suffered during all this time of his absence. The man notes with horror to himself that the guy is of a completely different class, so he needs to be careful and definitely survive. Having thought it over well, the enemy asks Daisung for mercy. The man says he is ready to give all his money just to survive. The Khan becomes interested in the villain's offer of money and asks where it is. The enemy points out to the guy that they are in the safe in the office. Khan mockingly says that he will accept the offer since the man himself says so, and turns to go to the safe. As soon as the guy moves away, the man immediately runs away. Entering the office, Khan tells the man sitting there to leave. Otherwise, he will kill him too. At this time, the man who was beaten by Khan gets into his car, cursing the protagonist, saying that he will kill him and his family. But at that moment, right behind him, in the back seat, Daisung appears, accusing the scoundrel of not telling him the code to the safe. Naturally, the man is surprised and scared that Khan found him. He asks the guy how he found him, but the hero doesn't answer his question, and we can't use our shadow technique. The guy adds that what is important now is that he will know where the scoundrel is and will be able to find him at any moment. Sometime later, the main character teleports the money from the safe to himself. In total, the guy received 500,003,201, and now he is wondering how long he can live on that amount. Han wonders if he could buy a couple of apartments in Seoul with that kind of money. Sometime later, the protagonist comes to a tech store and is advised on a new phone model for almost 3 million won. Daisung is in no hurry to pay for the purchase and asks the consultant about another model. The seller explains that another model is more popular among girls, and it costs almost 2 million. Hearing this, the hero thinks about buying a phone. The seller sees the young man's torment and thinks that he is being too persistent, so he openly offers an installment plan. However, in this case, Khan confidently says that he takes both models and the seller is surprised. The consultant thinks to himself that he has hit the jackpot with such a large sum of money. Arriving home, Khan leaves a package with new equipment on the table in his room. At this moment, she calls him, saying that it's time to go eat, but the young man replies that he needs to go out. The woman looks into the room, asking her son again. However, he sees an empty room and wonders how he managed to get out so quickly. Meanwhile, the guy goes to meet his friend Chan-ho. Seeing him, the main character approaches the table where his friend is resting. To himself, Pro notes that Khan has changed a lot. Friends sit down at the table and gather to drink to the meeting. Chan asks his friend if he has decided what he will do next. Daisung drinks the drink and replies that he doesn't know yet. Ho seriously tells his friend that they are no longer stupid schoolchildren, but Han is not up to it. He is completely absorbed in drinking. Suddenly, the protagonist asks how many floors in the building he can buy for 500 million, and Ho wonders where the guy got that kind of money. Thinking about his friend's question, Chan-ho says that for that amount of money he could look for an apartment outside of Seoul. Hearing this, Han asks how much apartments cost in Seoul. Taking a sip of alcohol, Ho replies that the cost of an apartment in the capital is approximately 2 billion. Khan falls silent and his friend grins, advising him to pull himself together because in the 10 years that the guy was out cold, a lot has changed. After drinking some more, Ho says that according to the main character's mother, the guy has awakened. Khan replies that he can only answer after he learns what awakening is. The friend smiles and says that Daisung might not have known about this even if he woke up. After finishing dinner, the friends continue their conversation, and Ho begins to talk about how, after his friend's fall, various portals began to appear. Chan explains that the authorities initially ordered an investigation into the phenomenon. However, at some point, these portals began to crack and monsters began to appear from there. Of course, they attacked people and no modern weapons could stop them. Because of this, the number of victims increased more and more. Khan asks again if the monsters are really unaffected by anything at all. Ha confirms this, saying that it can be considered that no conventional weapon works. However, later, as research progressed, it became clear that only aura weapons obtained from the biomaterials of the monsters themselves worked on them. Only the awakened can use such weapons. Finishing his story, Chan-ho points to his friend and says that Han can face monsters because he is awakened. Daisung takes out his phone, thinking out loud about his friend's words, and Ho asks about the model of the device, to which the protagonist begins to brag about purchasing the latest version. But Ho says with a grin that the model is not new at all and can be bought for next to nothing. Daisung gets mad at his stupidity, and his friend jokingly calls the hero a klutz. Returning to the conversation about the awakened, Ho says that one of their features is the strengthening of the body through control of the aura. Turning to his friend, Chan-ho points out that the guy quickly restored his body and also beat up several people. Daisung thinks about it and asks his friend if awakened people get paid. Ho is surprised by his friend's lack of seriousness and asks. However, Khan claims that he is seriously interested in how much money can be made from this. His friend doesn't have time to answer him, when suddenly a portal begins to form not far from his friends. The surrounding people begin to watch the red portal in anticipation. At this moment, orcs begin to appear from the portal. The people around are shocked and start to panic. Ho doesn't understand why the portal opened now. Khan wonders what kind of freaks these are, because in AOU there were completely different monsters. The main character picks up a stone and says out loud that it's probably worth competing with the monsters that have come, which surprises his friend. Daisung throws a rock at one of the orcs and looks closely at the monster. Khan senses that something is wrong with the orcs. They behave and look unusual. After carefully examining the monster's reaction to the attack, Daisung sees that the orc has some kind of shield. Ho yells at his friend, saying that he already mentioned that human weapons don't work on monsters. At that moment, one of the orcs starts to attack his friends and Ho takes cover, feeling that the end has come. However, Khan saves his friend by crushing the monster's head, saying that he can handle them with his bare hands. A shocked Chan Ho looks at Daisung and is surprised at how easily he can deal with the orc. Meanwhile, the monsters begin to attack one by one, and Daisung fights each of them in turn. Seeing his friend deal with monsters quite easily, Ho estimates Daesung's level to be above B rank. However, he immediately comes to his senses and realizes that he needs to start evacuating civilians. Some monsters are distracted by unarmed people who can do nothing to them. Seeing the confusion of the civilians, Chang Ho shouts and demands that everyone calm down and that he knows a safe way out of here. The guy moves closer to the people and asks them to follow him. Suddenly, several orcs appear right in front of the unarmed men. People start to panic and the monsters start attacking some civilians. A little girl who lost her mother in a crowd finds herself in danger. The monster was about to swing at the child, but the girl was saved by Ho, who grabbed her in time. At this moment, Khan comes to the rescue, attacking the orc who attacked his friend, which makes Ho very happy. Daisung is glad that his friend is okay and asks him to leave since he is only getting in the way. Chan Ho and the girl look at the savior and are about to leave for a safe place. Ho commands and tells the people to follow the riverbed as quickly as possible. However, at the moment of the monster's attack on civilians, someone in a nearby cafe is recording a live broadcast of what is happening. The events are commented on by the eternal waiter, who is not at all worried about his safety. Orcs surround and attack the main character. At one point, Khan misses a blow from the monster and is thrown into a nearby car. So viewers of the broadcast believe that the guy is dead. At this time, Chan Ho, who was saving people, brings the girl to her mother. One of the civilians asks the guy if he wants to go back to the surface. At this time, above, the orcs gradually surround the main character, who is still unconscious. The waiter recording the broadcast looks at the lying Daesung and says that the guy is in great danger. The monsters are approaching Khan and the cameraman cannot watch as the hero is killed. However, at the last moment something happens and the orcs stop. Daesung appears behind one of the monsters and kills him. The waiter is amazed that Khan survived and continues to film what is happening. The protagonist lands on his feet and turns to the monsters, saying that thanks to them, he was able to recharge a little. The guy adds that he will now kill the orcs one by one without any pain. Footage of Khan's massacre of the orcs is broadcast. The cameraman receives comments asking him to come closer to capture the most interesting part, which he thinks the fans have gone crazy about. However, to motivate the waiter, they start throwing money at him with conditions that he come closer. The operator thinks that no matter what the amount, it's still scary to get that close. Looking at Han, who easily dodges all the attacks, the waiter thinks that coming closer is no joke. Meanwhile, the operator is promised even more money if he continues to fulfill the conditions. At first, the guy hesitates whether he should go somewhere, but someone sends a sum of 20 million won, which shocks the guy. However, it turns out that the money is being donated by a certain organization that fulfills the boss's conditions. The employees discuss among themselves that now the waiter will move to fulfill their conditions, and the people of the organization also go to the point. One of the men tells his colleague that they finally feel like they are spies, and Khan is the one they need. Meanwhile, the main character has finished with the orcs that attacked him. The approaching monsters cautiously examine the battlefield, and the guy mockingly notes that the orcs have become afraid. Suddenly, one of the monsters is killed by the same orc, only larger. The waiter watches all this and understands that he was paid too much to refuse it so easily. The operator goes outside and hides behind the car, reassuring himself that such a chance comes once in a lifetime. Daesung looks at the newly appeared orcs with irritation, because if this continues, his strength will quickly run out. Suddenly, Chan Ho appears next to the operator, asking what the waiter is doing here. The guy yells at the cameraman, who drops the camera and microphone out of fear. Ho leads the waiter from the street into the building. The operator panics because he has lost his camera and microphone and cannot continue broadcasting, which means he will not receive money. Suddenly, an orc appears right in front of Hody the waiter. The cameraman immediately loses his composure and Chan Ho becomes nervous as he doesn't know what to do next. At that moment, something blows off the monster's head. Turning around, Ho sees his friend Han, who saved his life again. Entering the cafe, Daisung asks his friend why he came back and asks if Ho can stay alive for the next 20 minutes, since the guy needs to go somewhere, and Ho agrees. The guy tells Han that clans will arrive here soon and promises to tell him about them when Daisung returns. The main character summons a teleport to the pantheon and is transported there, although the observer is surprised that his friend can open portals. After moving to the pantheon, Daisung loudly complains about being tired from the past battle with the orcs. After checking how much magical power he has left, the guy becomes disappointed and asks the terminal what is the fastest way to restore it. The system suggests using a diary and the guy remembers that he filled it out when he was in hell. The main character sees his diary systematized. The guy watches the systematization process silently. After the operation is completed, the system starts printing and completes it shortly. Khan is not feeling well and wants to skip straight to the moment when he received his magical powers. After thinking for a bit, the guy names the 16th page number where he wants to move. Meanwhile, in the real world, the waiter and Ho walk up the stairs to the cafe, and the cameraman looks at Chang Ho, thinking about his connection with Han. The operator asks where Daisung went. However, Ho understands what is going on and directly asks if the cameraman was offered money to film Han's face. The waiter doesn't answer, and Ho tells him to keep quiet and follow them to the roof, as there might still be surviving creatures left. The guy receives a message from the Soul Clan, notifying him that those responsible for the evacuation are late. So Ho needs to be more careful, to which the guy thinks to himself that it would be good if Jason returned. Meanwhile, in the Pantheon, the protagonist has moved to page 16 of his diary, and now feels how everything around has become quiet. At this moment, a huge something appears behind the hero, indicating that an unidentified object has appeared that needs to be destroyed. The creature directs a laser beam at the hero, which must be dodged. The guy successfully avoids the attacks and the monster calms down for a while. Then, the creature and Han begin to fight, and Daisung decides that he needs to finish off the enemy as soon as possible. The protagonist strikes straight into the creature's eye. The monster loses its balance but does not break, and attacks the guy with its limbs. Khan gets angry and tries to get to the monster's head. Soon the boy hits the creature's body so hard that it begins to disintegrate. Pleased with his work, Daisung confidently demands that the training continue. However, something starts to go wrong and the hero sees changes in the battle. Meanwhile, Ho and the waiter play until they reach the roof and carefully go outside. They see the disfigured corpses of people in front of them. However, they hear that one person is still alive and decide to approach him. Ho gently touches the wounded man and asks how he is. The man barely manages to tell the heroes to run away from here. Ho and the operator sense the presence of an alien, an orc, behind them. The waiter is scared but tells Ho to grab the wounded man and leave, but the guy disagrees with him and tells him to be ready to run on his command. Waiter Tole turns to the side. Kula had been looking at Chan Ho before and sees a huge orc. The guy sees how scared the operator is, but nevertheless tells him to get ready to run on command. Right there, the monster senses living people and prepares to attack. Meanwhile, Daisung observes something strange happening to the monster. A huge red sphere has formed in its place. The guy doesn't understand what it is. The sphere rises up and says that the rebirth has begun. The timer starts and the creature's body gradually begins to recover. Khan can't allow this, so he runs straight to the sphere and punches it. Having climbed onto it, the guy intends to completely reset the timer and finish off the monster. The hero begins to hit the sphere again and again, while the system notifies about the restoration of the creature by 55%. Soon, Daisung manages to completely destroy the sphere. At this point, the rebirth percentage increases, but then an error message appears everywhere. The protagonist continues to hit the destroyed sphere, shouting to stop. At this point, Khan turns his attention to the background and sees a bunch of monsters there, just like the previous one. They all notice the guy and are aiming to destroy him, so Daisung skillfully dodges their attacks. The hero is not happy that he now has more opponents. Therefore, the guy intends to get rid of them as soon as possible. Running to a safer distance to rest, the hero begins to think about how to get rid of the monsters. Khan decides that he needs to delve into his memory and remember how he solved the problem before. However, the hero is already quite tired, and his head is a complete mess. After thinking a little more, a memory comes to mind that should help. Meanwhile, in reality, Ho and the cameraman rush towards the door in the building together as an orc approaches them. Tired and scared, they reach a secluded place inside the building. However, the monster is not ready to let the victims go so easily, so he tries to get them out of the building, to which Chan-ho suggests that the waiter go downstairs. Meanwhile, in the Pantheon, Khan runs away from the monsters to a safer distance. The hero knows the place he needs to get to, so he doesn't worry too much. Finally, the guy gets to the right point and stops. The monsters following the main character stop in a semicircle. Each of them launches an analysis to determine the radius of the location of the object to attack. However, Khan is no longer worried about himself because he knows what will happen next. With a grin, the guy reminds them that they are in the forest with a predator. At this moment, a huge whale appears from underground and swallows all the monsters. Han, watching this, smiles, because he knows that it is impossible to be reborn in the stomach of a creature. At this point, the system notifies the guy that the task is completed and his physical abilities are being overloaded. After this, the main character begins to feel a little stronger than before. Moreover, for successfully completing the mission, Daisung receives a dagger. Having received the weapon, Khan examines it and says that for now, the dagger will do. After making sure that the guy has accomplished everything he wanted in the Pantheon, he decides that it is time to return. In the real world, a news broadcast begins, where the hosts discuss the newly opened portal and believe that the problem with what happened is that it is happening in the area where the Hunting Association is managed. The professor on air says that it is their fault because it is the job of the hunters to protect civilians, and how can they be trusted after this? The presenters say that the portals open periodically, which means that you need to be on guard any day. This broadcast is watched by people driving to the scene of the incident. The guy listening to the news starts to get angry and says that hunters can't get paid as much as clan members. The young man continues to be indignant, saying that they are not clairvoyants to catch him, since even with special equipment no one can find him. The guy's boss tells him to stop fidgeting, because the boss, as a manager, won't be fired even if they fail. Suddenly, the news broadcasts information about a suspicious hunter with injuries. At this time, inside the cafe where the two young men are hiding, the waiter asks if there is a way to get out of here, because it is creepy to be inside, knowing that there are corpses on the roof. Ho tells him that he is also scared, but they have no choice but to wait for rescuers. Suddenly, the waiter looks out the window and says that it looks like the hunters have arrived. Chan-ho looks in the same direction and is surprised that the rescuers arrived so quickly. Suddenly, something happens right in the building, and both young men hide behind the counter, thinking that perhaps these are not rescuers at all, but monsters. However, it is only the Khan, returning from the Pantheon, demanding to leave him, hungry. Ho is genuinely happy to finally see his friend return. The main character mockingly asks if he is too late. Chandu asks his friend how he got here so quickly. Instead of answering, the protagonist's stomach growls and Ho asks if his friend was hurt in the fight. Khan turns to the waiter and asks him to turn on the fire to fry some meat. The cameraman and Ho are surprised by this behavior of the main character. The young people are surprised that Khan is not at all embarrassed that he wants to have a snack in a dilapidated cafe, where a dead monster is lying. Daisung eats a piece of meat with the monster's blood on it without any disgust. Seeing this, Ho and the waiter barely restrain their gag reflex. At this moment, a military man enters the cafe and asks if everything is okay. The waiter is glad to see the hunters and thanks them sincerely. The soldier notes that Daisung is eating calmly in this situation. Ho, meanwhile, turns to the arriving soldier, greeting him and expressing his joy that they arrived on time. Covering for Han, Chan-ho tells the soldier that his friend is simply very nervous, which is why he is acting like that. Still acting fake, the friend leans over to Daisung and says that maybe he should go to the hospital. The soldier turns to Ho and says that he cannot leave so easily. Chan-ho smiles and takes out the Soul Clan ID card, adding that if there are any questions, they should call the phone number provided. The soldier sees a familiar pass and calmly lets the young man go. Meanwhile, other hunters are inspecting the scene, and the leader in charge of the operation tells his subordinate to check for survivors. The boy goes to other hunters and asks to take him with them, since he is also from the clan. The boss remains in place and thinks about this strange guy who is tougher and stronger than the monsters. Ho and Han are riding in a car, and his friend tells the protagonist that it would be better for him to spend the night at his place. However, Daisung disagrees with his friend and says that he needs to go home because they are worried about him. Chan-ho says that it would be better if the family only had some worries because now Daisung is being searched for all over the city. Ho says that he will call the protagonist's mother himself while Han is taking a shower and order dinner. Arriving at Chang-ho's house, Han is caught by the wealth inside. A friend tells the protagonist to go take a shower while he sorts everything out. Sometime later, the main character sees a huge amount of food and is surprised by such luxury. The friend explains that they were interrupted at the cafe while Daisung was eating, so now he can eat normally. Daisung reminds his friend that he mentioned that hunters can make a lot of money. Ho confirms this, saying that now is the time when such people are valued. The young man asks the protagonist if he is going to become a hunter. Daisung continues to eat and confirms his friend's words. Ho supports his friend, saying that if he goes to the association and shows his abilities, then his level will definitely be level B. Ho adds that if Han tries hard, he might even reach level A. The main character asks his friend what levels he is talking about. Ho explains that it's like ranks, and if Daisung is at level B, he can join a big clan or become a member of an association, and the salary will be high. Khan wonders if there is anything higher than such ranks, and his friend confirms this, saying that of course there is. Chang Ho says that there is a level S, which only includes 5 people out of 2 million awakened ones. As a joke, the guy asks his friend if he's thinking about becoming the 6th. Ho continues to tell Han that he doesn't need such ambitions, and that it's enough to get to level A because even getting there isn't that easy. A friend asks Daesung if he has finally decided to become a hunter. Friends drink to celebrate the day, and the main character continues to think about the words of his friend and the hunters. At this time, a meeting takes place in an expensive restaurant. A young man with long hair is talking about a crazy debtor. He talks to a male bandit that Han once met and tells him that it was the protagonist who destroyed their organization. Looking at the file lying on the table, the frightened man confirms this and recognizes the young man in the photo. The young man gets up from the table and says that the man is in a difficult situation. After all, since he remained alive, he could have escaped. Otherwise, the young man does not understand why the unfortunate man came to him. The frightened bandit says he had nowhere else to turn. The young man, the leader of the Red Horse clan, Lee Sogu, says that he understands because the man had nowhere else to go, and he would hardly have gone to the police. Mogu asks if the bandit is really so nervous because of another dead man lying right on the floor in the restaurant. Nervously, the man begs Lee Mogu to spare his life. The clan leader says there is no need to worry because they will only take the money. The young man leans closer to the frightened man and says that the organization probably has some money hidden away. However, the man replies that he had the lowest position and that he knows nothing, and asks to believe him. Unexpectedly, Sogu pulls away and says that he will believe the man's words. He thanks the young man, to which he replies that they will end here. At this moment, the clan leader uses a technique and rips the man's head apart. Sogu looks emotionless. He doesn't care at all about the life of the murdered man. A young man walks away from a fresh corpse. Sogu picks up the dossier on Han and shows it to the figure standing behind him, demanding that he deal with it. A mercenary girl takes on a task from her boss. The next day, Daesung goes to the Korean Hunters Association. Ho, who brought him here, said that first Han needs to say that he wants to get a certificate of his awakening, and then they will help him. Finally, Chan Ho yells at his friend to use polite speech. The guy shouts to Daesung that he is going to work and asks him to text him when the results come in. Looking at Han leaving, Ho wonders to himself why he himself is so worried. Entering the association building, Daesung looked at other people who apparently also came for a certificate. Khan understands that he will get the money, but at the same time everything here seems confusing to him. After receiving a ticket with his number 9, Daesung sees that there are a lot of people and realizes that the position is in high demand. At this moment, the hero's mother writes to him, saying that she took the day off and is waiting for her son at home, to which he decides that she doesn't need to know where he is. The guy types that everything is still with Chang Ho. Mom replies that his sister is also waiting for Khan, as she wanted to have lunch together, which makes the hero very happy. After a while, a girl with glasses and a bob comes out, announcing that number 9 is next in line. In the background at this time, an unknown old man is arguing with the staff and does not understand why he is not awakened, because he felt what happened. The man from the association replies that he is sorry, but the machine does not recognize the force. At this, the man shouts and reproaches him that this is a malfunction of the machine. People in line start to get indignant that nothing is being done to the man because they are also waiting. The man does not understand how he can be awake if he has become so bald overnight. Khan, watching what is happening, begins to get furious because they are waiting for him at home and he is in a hurry. The old man continues to shout and says that he will inform the association boss himself. At this moment, someone touches his bald head, and the old man is outraged by this. Turning around, he sees an angry Khan, who says that there is a line here and is waiting. Star tries to explain that the association has faulty equipment because he is definitely awakened. Daesung is surprised by the words about the broken device. At this moment, a young man from the association approaches the conflicting parties and says that he can check everything because he is awakened. The man approaches the car and begins to interact with it. The device performs an analysis, and the lamp lights up green, to which the awakened one says that the machine is absolutely in good working order. The man is at a loss for words in response to this statement. The girl with glasses tells the old man to get out because there is a line. Leaving the settlement, the mischievous man shouts that the device may be making mistakes. The girl apologizes to Khan for the incident and invites him to take the test. Khan thanks her and goes into a special room. Among themselves, the members of the association roll over the fact that the main character must have a high level. But the young man from the association jokingly clicks the girl with glasses, telling her that she should work and not make eyes at her. She thinks to herself that the guy managed to instill a feeling of fear, and if he is awakened, then he will definitely be above level B. At this time, a telephone call rang in the office of the head of the association's branch, asking him to go down to the 6th floor to the 3rd ward. At first, the man does not understand why this is necessary, but he is convinced to go down. As he goes down, the branch manager wonders if someone of S level has really appeared. However, he quickly dismisses this thought, as it is practically impossible and most likely one of the subjects is simply being rebellious. People in line look at each other in surprise and talk among themselves about what is happening. The man descends and makes his way through the crowd closer to the ward. Looking inside, he sees that the part of the apparatus responsible for the color of the awakened one is destroyed. Shocked, the man asks what it is. Other association workers are at a loss for words to explain what happened. One of the workers approaches the manager and points at Khan. The man says that the main character just put his hand on the device and this happened. Earlier in the room, when Khan placed his hand on the device, it began to take on a strange hue. The surprised guy asked the workers if this was real. At first, Daesung is reassured that this could happen, but then the device starts to crack, which shouldn't happen. The guy himself doesn't understand what's going on because he's not doing anything serious. The room fills with smoke, and the workers realize that something strange is happening. One of the men asks Khan if he is okay. The guy is silent and looks at the device. After listening to the story, the branch manager asks that the problem was not a malfunction of the device. The man adds that 3 such devices could not have broken down at once. Listening to the dialogue between the people from the association, Daesung thinks that he only touched the car and hopes that they will not demand monetary compensation from him. So he asks out loud what he should do now. The leader begins to speak hesitantly to the hero. The man thinks to himself that if he continues testing the guy, all the other devices will break. Having thought about this, the leader turns to the guy again. The man says that this is the first time such a situation has happened. Therefore, he adds that the border guards must make the decision, and Khan asks who they are. The manager says that if the apparatus cannot decide, the judges conduct a licensing test. The man adds that the results of such a procedure reveal the level. The protagonist asks if such a test would be fair. Another guy from the association tells Khan that the evaluation is carried out according to the established criteria, so there is no need to worry. Daesung agrees since he has no other options. The members of the organization are sold with the departing Khan. The manager exhales and says that they cannot live in peace. Suddenly, a girl in glasses asks the manager if the crystal ball reacts to foreign energy, and the man confirms this. Then, the girl thinks about Daesung's abilities because his energy has gone over the scale. However, one of her colleagues giggles at the girl's statement. The manager understands what the girl is getting at and says that she is funny, and is glad that Daesung is above level S. A colleague interrupts the girl, advising her to think before speaking. At this moment, something happens to the sphere in the apparatus. Once outside, Han calls his friend Ho and says that he was advised to contact the border guards. The friend asks the hero why he was told that, and the guy replies that the device is broken, which Ho does not believe at first. Daesung denies being noisy. Chan-ho still doesn't understand what really happened, but encourages his friend, saying that he is confident that his friend will pass the test successfully. The friends say goodbye and Ho advises Han to go home. However, the main character feels that someone is watching him and turns around. A girl hired by Lee Sogu watches him through a telescopic sight. She notes to herself that the guy doesn't look strong, but by and large she doesn't care, because one shot will decide everything. Suddenly, she notices the guy looking straight at her. The mercenary recoils in shock that she has been discovered. She watches the target again, believing that it is impossible for her to be noticed. Watching the guy through the scope, she sees Daesung pointing with his finger where to aim. The girl puts her weapon away for a moment, still not understanding how she could have been spotted, and she also guesses that Khan can hear her from such a distance. Suddenly, the guy's voice sounds in her head telling her to shoot, and she takes aim again and pulls the trigger. Daisung sees all this and realizes that he has just been shot. The bullet hits and causes a small explosion near the main character. The mercenary relaxes because she feels that she has hit the target. However, looking through the optical sight, she sees that Khan is alive and not even wounded. The aura bullet she fired bent, which surprised the girl. The mercenary starts to get nervous because she doesn't understand who Khan is, so she tells herself to get ready and run away from here. Throwing down her weapon, the girl runs away as quickly as possible. However, the main character's dagger immediately pierces her leg. Not expecting such an attack, the girl loses her balance and falls. An enraged Khan appears next to her. He says with a grin that it's a pity that she aimed so poorly. Although even so, she couldn't kill him. The girl is not going to give up so easily, so she takes out a gun. Taking aim at the guy, she asks him if he really got away even after the aura bullets. Asking where he came from, the hero calmly answers her that he is from hell and she does not believe him. The guy calmly repeats again that he returned from hell. The mercenary doesn't believe him and says he's talking nonsense, so she shoots him with a pistol. She screams death wishes at the guy, to which he begins to use the technique to defend himself. Having fired a whole magazine, the girl stops and thinks that Khan must have died. Suddenly, the guy appears right behind her. The hero summons a shadow technique to attack the girl. The mercenary is furious that she can't defeat the guy. Suddenly, Daisung appears right in front of her and slams her into the wall. The mercenary is immediately grabbed by Khan's shadows. The girl tried to break free, but to no avail, causing her to lose consciousness. Daisung is surprised because he didn't have time to do anything like that and she had already passed out. Bending down, the guy notes that in this place it's too lazy even to kill. Not far from him, Khan sees an open guitar case containing small photographs of his mother, sister, and himself. Seeing this, the guy decides to find out more about the photo, so he throws a bullet at the girl to make her wake up. The mercenary comes to, and the technology still holds her against the wall. Daisung approaches her and demands that she answer his questions or he will kill her. Not wanting to waste time, the guy asks the girl who sent her. The mercenary realizes that she cannot give away the Red Horse clan. After thinking it over, she says a random name, and Han asks who she is talking about. The girl replies that she is talking about the thug whom Khan recently robbed. The guy understands who she's talking about, and the mercenary thinks about how she can escape from the hero. The girl decides to play a trick and says that she will tell where the villain is if Khan lets her go. Instead of answering, the main character deftly wounds the girl with a bullet in the shoulder. The girl doesn't understand why she's like that, and the guy replies that she's acting too unnaturally for a mercenary, so if she does it again, he'll kill her. The girl silently scolds herself for rushing. Khan does not lose his attempt to find out the truth, so he wants to ask the girl again. The mercenary understands to herself that she has already failed the mission, so it makes no difference whether she leaves here alive or not. After all, she will be killed either way, either Daisung or Lee Sogu. Therefore, the mercenary decides not to tell Khan anything about the mission and to engage in battle with him again. The guy looks at the girl's attempts to resist him with indifference. Daisung kills the girl without hesitation with a precise blow to the heart. Daisung looks menacingly at the dead mercenary and becomes angry. Khan adds out loud that the time he spent in hell was enough for him. The hero puts away his equipment and the corpse rolls down the wall to the floor. Daisung is a little disappointed that he still hasn't been able to find out who sent the girl. Khan stands in front of the corpse, disappointed that he will also have to remove the corpse. Daisung touches his head and uses a technique related to memory and searches for something. Having found what he needs, he makes a new decision. Without delay, the guy summons a teleport to the pantheon. The hero says out loud that there are a lot of opened portals here. Looking at the dead girl, Han realizes that it would be better if he learned something new. Covering the girl with cloth, the guy disappears into the portal. Returning to the pantheon, Khan wishes to move to page 134 of the diary to information about the imprisonment of souls. This technique is one of the main royal weapons, along with the King of Hell, and is one of the 15 forces of Hell. Once upon a time, Khan defeated the soul demon when he was in Hell. Initially, Daisung thought that by sealing his soul, he would be able to fight comfortably, but the one he bound himself to turned out to be very weak. A notification about the move appears in front of the guy, and he notes that the situation on the ground is different, so he needs to act carefully. After confirmation, the protagonist is transported to another location, the River of Ghosts. Daisung remembers that on the other side of this river are the king's territories, and there used to be a boat here that the guy once used. But now, there is nothing nearby that can help, and it's not so easy to swim across the river. Even if you go into the water for a short time, the body will be destroyed by the dead. A sign appears in front of the hero with information about the task, where he needs to defeat the appearing monsters. A moment later, flying creatures began to appear in front of Khan. The guy looks at the monsters and doesn't understand who they are. Spider-like monsters with wings approach Khan. They start attacking the guy with small bombs, but the hero successfully dodges them. Suddenly, Daisung gets the idea that perhaps he will be given a boat for killing these creatures. At this moment, huge spiders appear in front of the hero, much larger than those that were moments earlier. However, Daisung, using his dagger, kills the enemy without any problems. The creatures are still attacking the guy from afar with their poison. However, the hero is collected and uses the shield in time to hide from the monster's attacks. When the creatures stop attacking for a while, Daisung thinks that killing each spider one by one is too tedious. Therefore, he has no choice but to finish them all off at once, which the hero does successfully. Some creatures appear again and again attacking the guy. However, Daisung is fully focused on completing the mission quickly, so he deals with the creatures without delay. Using his dagger, Han easily kills multiple monitors at once. At the end, as if completing the task, the hero destroys the eye of one such spider. Then, a sign appears in front of Daisung, notifying him of the end of the mission and information about the reward. A new relic appears in front of the hero, protection for the character. The main character understands that he will still have to swim across the river himself. Using the armor, Daisung swims across the river. Finally reaching the shore, he emerges unharmed thanks to his armor. The system praises Daisung for swimming across the river, but says that there is nothing she can do to help, and Han shuts her up. Once on the king's land, Khan sees that there is no one there, and the king's fortress has also disappeared. The guy starts to remember out loud if there was a way to complete the task in the fortress. Suddenly, something starts to happen in front of Khan. A huge celestial obelisk rises before the hero. The doors of the building begin to open gradually. The hero assumes that a new task begins there if he goes inside. At this moment, a huge demon emerges from the obelisk. The guy recognizes the enemy. It is the commander of diseases. Troops begin to appear near the commander, and Daisung remembers that while he was in this state, they were not even close to him. The warriors react to the main character. Some of the monsters attack Khan, but he fights them off. A moment later, the hero realizes that the warriors have no base. The guy suggests that this might be related to the obelisk, while the warriors rush to attack. Daisung wastes no time and uses the blood naturalization technique, declaring that he will finish them all off at once. The main character easily throws the creatures away from himself. Khan thinks it will be more advantageous for him to attack them from the inside, while they have not yet left the building. Having thought it over well, the guy decides to destroy the obelisk altogether. After destroying the building, the monsters begin to evaporate. Thus, the mission could be considered accomplished. As a reward, the guy receives 2 runes, which he decides to check beforehand. After collecting them, Daisung gains information about each of the relics he received. At first, the hero sees an inconsistency in the mission's goal, but then decides that it doesn't matter since he has already received the reward. The guy continues to collect and improve relics. As Khan was about to leave, he noticed a strange yellow sphere. A warning appears, but the hero ignores it and collects the relic. After collecting it, an engraved circle appears on the guy's armor, and a message pops up in front of him. After reading it, he does not attach any importance to the text and considers the message useless. Daisung summons a portal back to reality. Returning back to the real world, Han sees that the girl's corpse is no longer there. He is surprised, but does not look for the body. Sometime later, the boy returns home, where his sister is waiting for him, saying that the soup has already cooled down. Daisung apologizes to the girl for being late. The girl invites her brother to join the table as soon as possible. At home, while the family is having dinner, the news is on, reporting that the opening of the portals has caused great damage. However, Khan's mother turns off the TV, suggesting that they eat in silence. Daisung says out loud that the world has changed lately. The mother admits that she did not talk about it because she was afraid that her son would go into shock and apologizes for keeping silent. Khan thanks her for keeping him alive while he was in a coma. Jisoo listens to the dialogue between her mother and brother with embarrassment and turns away. The guy feels that something is wrong with the atmosphere and starts thinking. Suddenly, the hero asks the family if they need anything, and the sister says in surprise that Khan can afford it. Sometime later, Daesung calls Chanho and tells him that he wants to lay low for a while, and Chanho doesn't quite understand why. Khan explains that he noticed he was being followed, meaning the mercenary, still thinking that Kula might have found the corpse. To sum it up, Han asks his friend to look after his mother and Jisoo while he is away. After finishing the conversation, Daesung thinks that he needs to somehow make the villains show themselves. After the conversation, Ho wonders what Han wants to do. At this time, a mercenary reports to the leader of the Red Horse clan, saying that he removed the girl's corpse and fearing that their enemy is strong. I can rest easy knowing that Khan will show up for testing, so I'll have a chance to deal with him. The head of the clan stands in the laboratory and addresses the test subject, Jin. The subject, a blonde man, says that he can't wait to start because he has been waiting for this for a long time. The scientist reports Jin's medical data to Sogu and asks if he should proceed with the serum administration. Mogu warns the subject that he will be in unbearable pain. However, Jin confidently says that he knew exactly what he was getting into, so he was ready for anything. The head of the clan gives the command to the scientist to begin an experiment on introducing the serum. The substance gradually begins to penetrate into Jin's body. The subject begins to feel pain from the serum. The scientist overseeing the drug administration process informs the chief that they have exceeded the limit. However, Sogu says to continue the experiment, to which the scientist is surprised, because Jin could die. But Sogu convinces the scientist that he would not have brought a person here who could not withstand such an experiment. When the serum is administered at 90%, Jion is in agony from the pain. After the drug is fully injected into the body, the scientist looks at Jin's health and sees that there is no pulse. Sogu does not react to the words that the subject has died, but continues to observe. A moment later, the pulse appears on the monitor again. The scientist is shocked by this because he thought the experiment had failed. The awakened genie knocks out the glass of the vessel he was in. The clan leader, who expected such an outcome, is happy. The subject does not appear weak or tired. Pleased with his success, Lee Sogu says that he is looking forward to the 10th day. Meanwhile, Ho corresponds with Han and tells him that only the shield and weapons specified by the association can be used during the testing. Daisung decides to check something and runs a stick over his clothes. He comes to the conclusion that the shield in real life is not a video, unlike the weapon. The guy starts thinking about how to hide the weapon in reality. The guy takes his K-press out of his inventory and decides to disguise it as a stick. The guy customizes his weapon and it takes on a new look. Khan looks at the change in the dagger and suggests that this way he can find and disguise his favorite sword. The guy decides he needs to find his weapon. Daisung summons a portal to the pantheon and ends up in the Salt King's territory. The place is very hot, and Daisung regretfully says that he didn't think he would come back here again. Suddenly, huge monsters, wolves, begin to appear next to the guy. Khan receives a mission notification. He must exterminate 1,000 of Orkiel's servants. Daisung decides to use the soul sealing technique, so he cuts his hand. The wolves begin to attack, but the hero is ready for this. Little by little, Khan defeats the monsters attacking him. At some point, the guy stops to call for an army. The wolves try to attack the hero, but someone else's paw stops them. Thanks to Khan's technique, he was able to summon the same wolves to his side to attack his opponents. One by one, the monsters under Daesung's command stand up and the hero orders them to attack. The guy doesn't have to do anything because he already has warriors on his side, so he decides to light a cigarette. However, Han chokes on tobacco and does not understand how his friend Chan Ho smokes. Meanwhile, right in front of the hero, a wolf is cut down by his technique. However, the guy is not very upset because he knows that technology should not be underestimated. A wolf from Orkiel's army runs towards the protagonist, but is stopped by a warrior from Khan's army. Daesung knows that the wolves from the technique will be reborn until the mark in their bodies is removed. Still watching the battle from the sidelines, the boy realizes that it is moving slowly. He calculates that this task will most likely be followed by another one, so he decides to speed up the completion of this task. Daesung jumps out and realizes that he doesn't need to spend so much time killing wolves. High in the sky, Daesung finds the point where he needs to strike. Gathering his strength, he rushes forward to strike. For a moment, the monsters are distracted by the approaching Khan. A huge cloud of dust forms at the place where Daesung hit. At this point in Soul's plan, she is training for the test. Shin Choyun, a future test participant, prepares for testing. The leader of the Soul clan asks the chief what he thinks about the girl. The clan leader, Huang, thinks about his answer. The man says that Shin has a problem. She gets loose on the battlefield, so he suggests doubling the difficulty level to get ahead of this psychopath. The leader clarifies whether he is talking about the member of the Red Horse clan, Jin. Huang replies that it is about him, because if it were not for him, then no one would have surpassed Shin's skill this time. At first, the leader agrees with the boss, saying that Jin and Shin are of different levels. But Huang interrupts him, saying that what is more important is what tricks the Red Horse clan will resort to this time. The manager asks if Huang really thinks that Sogu will resort to something again. since it wasn't because of this matter that the various people banned recruitment for a whole year. Huang replies that it is because of this that Mogu is up to something more dirty. The leader concludes that this time the test will be an arena for two, Shinn and Jin, and Huang agrees. Meanwhile, in Hell, Khan had already defeated all the monsters. A sign appears in front of the guy with a notification that there is only one soul left to complete the task. But the guy is calm. There is still one surviving wolf next to him. Without hesitation, Daisung raises the dagger over him and kills him. After this, the system notifies about the end of the task, and the soul of each wolf is collected into a single relic. A sign appears with a notice that souls can be collected at the altar, and the hero becomes interested in this. Khan does not remember there being an altar in this place and hopes that he will not have to look for it. Having taken the relic with souls, the same altar begins to appear not far from the guy. Seeing this, the guy is glad that he jumped to conclusions. The hero approaches the altar and sees the conditions of the next task, where he needs to collect soul stones from the altar and receive the guardian's recognition. Right in front of Khan, a new enemy begins to appear. A guard. A huge snake appears in front of the main character. A notification appears telling the boy that he needs to answer the guard's question and get his approval, which surprises Daisung. He wearily says that everything was going well, but then sudden quizzes appeared. The snake is silent and waits for Khan. The guy turns to the guard and demands that he ask his question. The snake bends down and asks it in a language unknown to the guy. He gets angry and says that he is being bullied. At that very second, the protagonist throws his dagger straight into the snake's eye. The guard writhes in pain and Khan smirks at him. The snake intends to attack the guy, but he is ready and has already used blood naturalization. The protagonist and the guard enter into a fight. Khan is angry at the guard, saying that he missed, seeing the guy as an easy victim. Having deftly jumped onto the snake's head, Daisung begins to wound it with a dagger. The creature tries to throw Daisung off, but to no avail. And at some point, the guard's head explodes. Khan jumps off the creature's dead body. At first, the hero is disgusted by the smell of the guard's blood, but then turns around to look at him. The snake begins to regenerate, its head gradually growing back. Khan sees this and says out loud that he completely forgot that the creature is very tenacious. Preparing for a new fight, the guy thinks about the guard's abilities. The snake, with renewed vigor, prepares to attack the boy. Preparing to attack, Daisung angrily says that this can't go on any longer. The creature comes close to the guy, but he expected it. Daisung jumps into the guard's mouth and grabs his fangs. The snake is about to attack the guy with blue flame, but Khan assumed that it would happen. Then the snake swallows the hero, and for the first few seconds nothing happens. However, soon the guard's eyes widen in pain. A moment later, he chokes and spits out Khan. A guy appears from the guard's mouth with a sword. Standing up, Daisung says that it's a shame to waste it on a guy who doesn't even have arms. The guy grabs his karma sword and can't believe he's fighting someone who can't use the fire of resurrection. The snake comes to his senses and is ready to try to fight the hero again, but he is already waiting for him. Using his weapon skillfully, Daisung kills the guard. A notification appears that the task has been completed, also indicating that the implementation level has increased. Following this, the system sends out a notification that the guy needs to pass a test to prove his rights to the sword. Daisung must endure the pain of being burned for 10 days. The test begins, but the hero Ula has a plan. Holding the sword, he knows that he doesn't have to endure this pain. The Khan turns to the weapon, asking if it cannot recognize its owner. Daisung gets angry and demands that the timer be removed before he can take it apart. The time is reset and a notification comes that the hero has passed the test. Sword contacts Khan and apologizes for not recognizing him right away. Daisung relaxes and tells the gun not to worry about it. Daisung communicates with the sword and says that it has not descended to Pandemonium. Pandemonium is a place where demons, souls that perished in hell, live, a place of endless nothingness. There are reports that the Pandemonium demons are supporting Khan and asking for his release. The sword confirms that since Daisung left, he has been disappearing. The guy asks if the weapon despises him, but it denies everything, saying that it will accept any decision of the owner with joy. Sword adds that the only thing he was worried about was what happened after the guy left. Khan does not understand what the weapon is talking about and asks about it. The sword tells that one day, unidentified creatures broke through the boundaries of hell. The weapon reports that due to Khan's absence, all the demons have lost their powers. The unknown sealed the time and space of hell, and they also cast all the demons into Pandemonium. Therefore, the weapon had no choice but to be swallowed by the snake, from there watching the suffering of the demons. The sword says that he was forced to lead a meaningless existence because his ego was hurt. But now, fortunately, Daisung freed him. The weapon asks its owner why he returned. The main character takes the sword and says that he needs help. The weapon apologizes that Han is in a situation where he needs his help, but Daisung ignores the sword's words and shows him one of the relics, asking what it is. The weapon says it doesn't know what it is, but adds that the relic is emitting strange energy. The sword says that the energy is similar to that emanating from unidentified beings. The weapon says that everything needs to be checked first, but Kan-ul reaches out to the relic. The guy collects the relic, saying that the system has never let him down, and he can check it later. The guy grabs the yellow sphere. A strange sign appears in front of him, which is similar to the one that appeared earlier, and a seal forms on the hero's hand, and Khan assumes that with its help he can enter somewhere. The system asks if Han wishes to go back, and Daesung hesitates, remembering that he was usually quick to return to reality. After thinking about the sword's words, the boy decides to return to the pantheon. Meanwhile, in reality, in Ho's office, his colleagues discuss the video of the orc killing and ask if Chang-ho saw it. Staring at his computer monitor, Ho remembers Han and realizes that he can hardly even be called a friend now. At this moment, the manager comes up and asks Ho to take a break for a while. The guy asks if something happened. He notes that his colleagues are once again enthusiastically discussing the viral video. The people in the office do not pay attention to the boss who has arrived. The boss suggests that Ho go out. Outside, a man asks the boy if he was at the scene and if he has anything to share. Ho thinks about it, because if he says that he knows Han, he will be immediately forced to hire the guy. So the guy lies to his boss and says that if there was something important, he would have reported it already. The man doesn't seem to believe the guy much, but doesn't press him and says that if Ho knew something, they could find and hire Daesung for themselves. Chang-ho decides that he needs to continue pretending that he doesn't know anything and asks out loud how Shin Choyun is doing. The man is silent for a moment and Ho asks again. Finally, the boss replies that it's nothing special, but he's worried that she might not cope. 7 days before the test, Shin continues to train. She has 10 minutes left before the end of the training and she needs to destroy 10 plates. Shin successfully completes his mission. Suddenly, a monster appears from the last slab and runs towards the girl. She is ready to defend herself, but suddenly another creature bites into her shoulder, which she does not expect at all. Suddenly, the training ends and the artificial objects disappear. The girl comes to her senses and is unhappy that her training was cut short. All this time, she was being watched by her mentor Huang, who told the student to come up to him to talk. The girl is still unhappy that the man interrupted her workout like that, and he asks if she is overdoing it. The girl repeats the mentor's words about achieving the goal and asks if these are his words. Huang starts to justify himself by saying that he was talking about training. The girl replies that she doesn't overdo it because she knows her body. The man sarcastically replies that the girl really knows her body better than the system. Huang invites the girl to look at her statistics. The man shows a comparison of the emotional indicators of an ordinary person and hers. Huang adds that Shin is currently in a very tense and depressed state. The girl replies that she needs to get into the top 5. The man asks if she wants to raise her rank and Shin confirms this. Huang replies that if the girl raises her level, she will have many opportunities. But the girl interrupts him and says that she is not training to get a lot of money or fame and honor. Shin seriously says that he does this in order to kill all the monsters that live on Earth. 5 days before the testing begins, Lee Sogu comes to his clan's secret compartment. After entering the required combination, the leader enters a protected place. The man covers his face and says he didn't think it was possible to survive in such a place. While inspecting the premises, Sogu says that the equipment in the isolation ward needs to be changed, especially the ventilation system. Looking at the flashing lights, the man says that they too could do with being changed. Mogu turns to his test subject, who has been in a secret room all this time. Jin eats the animal carcass, initially ignoring Soga. The head of the clan is pleased that the experiment was successful and tells Jin to eat more, because this is the only way to muffle the properties of the drug. The test subject is pleased with the words of the mentor, and Sogu adds that this is the only way Jin can become the main character of the test. 3 days before the start of testing, the weapon asks the owner if he is going to return. Daesung accepts the sword, pleased that he spent his time at the Pantheon usefully training. On the day of the start of testing, journalists gather at the main complex in anticipation of the clan leaders and participants. The level of competition is expected to increase due to the rapid growth of awakened appearances and the association's methods of evaluating participants changing. At this moment, an expensive sports car drives up to the main building. The reporters turn their attention to him and see that Lee Sogu and his protege Jin have arrived in a car. The Red Horse clan chief and the awakened one exit their car and head towards the entrance. The journalists immediately rush to interview the man, asking about Jin and Sogu's expectations from the testing. Other journalists ask how Sogu is feeling after being suspended last year for using illegal methods. The young man, who was besieged by curious reporters, notes that they got on his nerves from the very beginning. Nevertheless, Sogu calmly answers out loud that he regrets the events of 2 years ago. However, some journalists are dissatisfied with the answer and rudely ask whether the head of the Red Horse clan does not think that regretting those events is not enough, and whether he is shirking responsibility. Ignoring the reproach, Sogu calmly replies that he promises that he will pass the test honestly this year and leaves with his protege. Inside the building, Jin tells his mentor that he should have just ignored the reporter. Seeing how serious Sogu is, Jin quickly apologizes and says that he was just joking. The clan leader seriously tells his protege to be careful during the testing, because if everything comes out, they will find themselves in a difficult situation. Suddenly, Huang appears behind them and asks what predicament they are talking about. Sogu is scared at first, but then he takes control of himself and greets the man. The young man immediately asks Huang why he is dressed so secretly, to which he replies that it is all because of the journalists. Kolko Huang adds that he didn't want to stand in front of the cameras like some. At that moment, the man from the Soul Clan notices Jin standing behind him and reads his aura flow, which appears flawless, causing the man to praise Soga for his graceful concealment. The head of the Red Horse clan notices Huang's gaze and jokingly says that the testing hasn't even started yet, and the man is already tense. Huang quips back, saying that no one knows if Sogu has brought back another infected person who could harm the newcomers. Sogu replies that this won't happen again this year and leaves with Jin. The protege tells the mentor that Huang was looking at them strangely. Sogu says seriously that he understands that Huang has ruined his mood, but Jin made the wrong choice of enemy. The man shows with his gaze where to look. At this moment, Shin Chuin passes by Jin. The guy finds out which clan the girl is from and looks forward to fighting her. Sogu interrupts him, saying that what's important isn't the serum that enhanced the boy, but the fact that the Soul Clan member also trained. An inspired Jin replies that this makes him want to defeat them as soon as possible. Watching Sogu and Jin walk away, Huan wonders what Sogu is planning, but then hopes that it won't hurt Shin. Suddenly, Han Daisung appears nearby. The protagonist passes by Huang, striking him with his powerful aura. The man is so surprised that Shin, who comes up, has to bring him back to his senses. Huang tells the girl to be careful, and she doesn't understand what these exercises are for. Then the girl realizes and tells the mentor not to worry about the guy from the Red Horse clan, because she will be serious. However, the man interrupts her and says that it is not about Gina. Meanwhile, Han calls Chan Ho, and he apologizes that he won't be able to come because he's very busy at work. Ho wishes his friend luck and they end the call, with Daisung walking over to the equipment dispenser. After reading and following the instructions, the guy receives his clothes with number 104. Meanwhile, an annoying old man whom Han met in the association's mission comes into the testing room. The old man is glad that his numerous calls and letters were not in vain and that he was noticed. And in general, how dare they doubt his abilities? The man recalls how on the day of the test, in the association's assignment, Khan brazenly touched his head. Suddenly, someone grabs the old man by the head and turning around, the man sees Jin. The frightened old man thinks about whether he should leave the test. Meanwhile, Khan approaches the hall. The protagonist feels well and looks forward to the start of testing. Entering the hall, many participants are waiting for the start, including a disguised Shin. Suddenly, the lights come on and the crowd comes to life. The inspector responsible for today's testing appears before the awakened ones. The man announces that this time 3-level portals have been set up, with each level having its own complexity and environment. Participants begin to talk among themselves about testing. One of the awakened ones asks when they will be given weapons. The inspector says that this time there will be no weapons distributed, and participants are prohibited from bringing anything with them. The crowd is dissatisfied and wonders how they will fight then. Suddenly, a hologram appears in front of the participants, representing the assistant. Artificial intelligence announces that the topic of today's test is adaptation, the purpose of which is to determine how well-awakened ones can develop their adaptation skills in different conditions. The value of a hunter lies not in his equipment, but in his aura, the skill that comes from the strength of his body. Participants only need to show how well they adapt and fight. At this point, the instructions end and the portal opens. The inspector announces that people should enter the portal one by one, starting from the last rows. At the first level, participants find themselves in a tropical forest with a dry and hot climate. Some of the awakened complain that due to the hellish conditions they will not even reach the beginning of the test. Everything that happens in the forest is monitored by cameras in the broadcast room. The observers are talking among themselves about how the standards are very high this time. However, there must still be those who pass all the tests. At this moment, Shinn tries to calm down and control himself so as not to waste excess energy. The participants are watched on the screens and Shinn and Jin's strengths are discussed, comparing them. Some of the spectators are discussing how Lee Sogu prepared this time. The head of the Red Horse clan thinks about how envious Huang must be. Han appears on the screen for a second and Huang notices Sogu's calmness. However, at that very moment, the head of the Red Horse clan turns his attention to the screen and is surprised by Daesung's appearance. Sogu is amazed that Han looks calm. There is not even a drop of sweat on him, and the man thinks that perhaps the guy hid his aura. But this indicates a high level of training. Khan feels comfortable because he previously drank a potion that helps cope with the influence of the environment on the body and hopes that no one will notice. The participants continue to complain about the heat and wait for the test to begin. After some time, an artificial intelligence appears, announcing that all participants have crossed the portal, which means they can begin. The first task for the Awakened is to kill 20 orcs in the swamp. Having heard the task, Khan takes off and runs deep into the forest. Another member rushes after him, shouting that he won't lose to Daesung, but suddenly trips. At this moment, the guy sees a small beating source in front of him. Delighted that he has found water, he touches the liquid. But something happens. Something takes hold of the participant, and it turns out to be a swamp worm, a flypaper worm that lives in swampy areas. It is announced that contestant number 94 is eliminated and emergency services are called to the scene. The creature spits out a guy in a protective shell, and the system says that the protection will be maintained until a rescue team arrives. At this time, Khan carefully clears the territories in search of orcs. Rescuers arrive at the scene with the guy. One of them steps away to look at the message on his device. The man sees the assignment to monitor number 104, Han Daisung, and accepts it. At this moment, the main character finds the orcs. Khan picks up a huge rock and holds it up, telling the creature how great it would be to hit him on the back of the head with the boulder. The guy continues to tease the orc. A huge creature runs straight at the protagonist, but he throws a stone and hits it. The man who received the assignment watches as Khan completes the task. At first, the man is surprised that he received such an order, but then he sees how deftly the guy deals with the orc and that surprises him. Khan doesn't look tired. He calmly carries out the task, and the man is caught by how different he is from the other test subjects. Khan, however, is thinking that it is not at all effective to kill the orcs one by one. Daesung says out loud that he didn't want to use magic at all in the first half of the mission, but he has no choice. The guy uses the shadow summoning technique, and after that he orders the shadows to find the rest of the orcs. One of the shadows breaks into a dark cave where the orcs have gathered. The creatures begin to talk among themselves about the noise in the cave. Suddenly, Khan, pleased with his find, jumps down into the cave from above. At first, the orcs don't pay any attention to the guy, thinking that easy prey has found them. Daesung takes out his camouflaged weapon and prepares to quickly complete the mission. The weapon contacts Khan, saying that it seems the orcs did not perceive the hero as they should have. Khan smiles and orders his weapons to destroy all the creatures in the cave. Meanwhile, Shinn runs through the forest in search of orcs. The girl uses her aura to find monsters. The girl notices one of the orcs and approaches him. The girl notes that at this speed she can complete the first task in an hour. The girl is going to kill the fourth monster. However, Jin runs ahead of her. The girl recognizes the guy from the Red Horse clan. Jin doesn't look tired and is quite satisfied with taking the loot from Shinn. The girl provokes the guy and says that the Red Horse is in his repertoire as always. Jin mocks the girl, saying that her yours or mine competition to determine whose prey is whose is very stupid. Shinn also quips back, saying that the guy is good at talking, which is just like his clan's style. Jin sarcastically replies that the girl's clan also likes to take last year's crazy people for testing. Jin wonders to himself whether he should kill the girl since she turned out to be so annoying, but stops himself, telling him to wait at least for the second level. Shinn turns around to leave and not continue the conversation with Jin, so he makes an obscene gesture and tells the guy to have fun on his own. The guy gets angry at such words and attacks the girl. However, something restricts his movements and he is surprised. Suddenly, Shinn and Jin hear and see a huge explosion. A few minutes before, in the orc cave, Khan stands with a lit weapon. The guy orders his sword to burn everyone in the cave. The cornered monsters can do nothing about the fire. Camera observers are shocked by what is happening. Seeing the explosion on the cameras and the announcement that Han has passed the first level test, no one believes that this is possible. The observers immediately begin to request information about the guy and demand that he prepare a contract. Watching the proceedings, Huang says he fully expected Daisung to make a fuss. Sogu is not happy that all the attention is focused on Han. Also monitoring the testing are people from the association, the girl and her colleagues who met with the hero when he broke the device in the association building. The girl is happy that her guess about the guy's strength turned out to be correct, and her colleagues are still amazed. Immediately, people from the association pay attention to the screen where the annoying old man was seen and recognize him. A man with an axe finishes off weakened orcs after an explosion. The old man is glad that he completes his task quickly enough. The girl and her colleagues see that the old man is cheating and do not understand how he ended up on the test at all, because he is an ordinary person. The girl from the association enthusiastically says that Khan broke many balls from the device that day. Her colleagues don't understand what she's talking about, and the girl explains that the whole thing is that after the breakdown, various rumors spread that the test results were incorrect. She adds that she heard many people complaining to the community about the matter that day. One of her colleagues does not believe the girl's words and jokingly flicks her on the head, saying that the people above are doing their work superficially. Suddenly, the boss appears behind them and the three of them get scared. The boss says that he himself included the old man in the list of test participants. The man says that 3 days ago he received a report that an old man tried to enter the portal with bombs tied around his body. The girl asks in horror if he really wanted to kill himself and something that is not awakened. The boss denies this and says that several years ago the old man lost his family due to the opening of the portal, and this was his attempt at revenge. One of the association members tells the man that if he gives such concessions, the system will collapse. His colleagues giggle at him, but his boss confirms his fears. The man draws the attention of his workers to Khan, saying that he has found a diamond. Suddenly, the broadcast starts to malfunction and the connection becomes weak, so Mogu, leaving the hall, addresses his protege. The man from the Red Horse clan tells the leader that this way, Han can reach the 2nd and 3rd levels very soon. However, Sogu reassures him, saying that John is not ahead of Jin yet. The head adds that for now, Jin is simply giving Han a head start to see his endurance out of curiosity. The man listens to the chapter and thinks to himself that Sogu has strange ideas about what it means to give a head start. The man assigned to monitor Khan tracks him through a scope and notes that number 104 is extremely talented. However, the man shoots the protagonist, saying that he shouldn't have gotten in the way of the Red Horse clan. However, the main character is fine and does not notice the surveillance. Looking up, Daisung figures that this is probably the entrance to level 2. Sogu smiles and rejoices at how good it will be if Daisung dies right there. Suddenly, a hovering golem appears near the man watching Khan. The man is hiding from the creature and feels he must report it as soon as possible, as he will receive a hefty reward. However, the golem notices him and attacks the man. The golem immobilizes him with a paralyzing poison. At some point, the man becomes afraid that he will not be able to get out. Meanwhile, Daisung, while searching for the portal, feels like he's walking around the same places. Suddenly, the guy stumbles upon the corpse of the very man who was following Khan. The protagonist assumes that it was an unplanned death. Suddenly, a golem appears behind Khan. The creature attacks Daisung, but he deftly dodges it. The main character begins to think about how to defeat the monster, selecting skills that he can use. Daisung understands that he can't use some skills because of the cooldown, and the golem certainly won't wait for him. So Khan dodges its attacks and then decides that he needs to finish off the creature as soon as possible. The guy jumps right into the golem to rip a piece of stone out of its body. Meanwhile, Jin deals with the last of the orcs. Finally, he is notified that he has passed the back and is moving on to the 2nd level. Suddenly, a small box flies up to the guy. Opening it, Jin sees an ampule, a note, and a compass. After carefully reading the contents of the note, she immediately ignites spontaneously and disappears. At this time, Khan is still dealing with the golem and summons the Shadow Phantom. The guy orders the technology to destroy the golem. The monster still attacks the guy, but he defends himself with a weapon. The guy's technique is fueled by parts of the golem, and Khan again orders an attack on the monster. Numerous shadows attack the golem. Khan, watching this, rejoices that he has almost defeated the creature. Meanwhile, a picture begins to appear in the broadcast room and the connection is established. Observers see that there is fog everywhere and do not understand what is happening. Finally, the picture appears and everyone sees the golem and is surprised that such an opponent was included in the exam. One of the association's workers asks if it is normal to include this in testing. The man asks the boss if they need to stop this because they have such a right as the highest protector. One of the workers reports that they were able to determine the location of number 104th. The man asks his boss if they should stop the test for Daisung, and he agrees, but is distracted by a girl from the association. She points to the screen in the broadcast room, where the protagonist's equipment is seen defeating the golem. The attack radius is quite large and powerful, which again surprises observers. The boss from the association, seeing this, understands that it is impossible to determine the level on the edge, and he thought that Khan's peculiarity was just a mistake and a malfunction of the device. Eventually, the man realizes that perhaps there is something incredibly strong within Daisung. The girl from the association is amazed by the success of the main character. Suddenly, another worker from the observers approaches her and says that Khan's success has nothing to do with the test. The stranger adds that Jin will reach the second level of the test before Daisung. Meanwhile, the association's boss is asked about further actions, and he replies that first they need to analyze the injuries and report everything. Meanwhile, Jin uses the compass to reach the portal to the second level. He stops for a moment to study the area and notices the fog clearing, indicating that everything has already been decided here. The guy gets rid of his compass in order to move on. Meanwhile, Khan has already finished off the golem and uses the soul imprisonment technique. The observers see what Khan is doing and are surprised that the guy is doing something again. Daisung, using the technique, summons a golem for himself. The creature does not obey at first, but the protagonist soon forces it to bow its head. The golem leans towards Daisung and submits to him. Something fast flies past Jin as he approaches the portal, and he stops in shock. He notices that it is Khan and is amazed at what he just did. Sogu returns to the broadcast room, confident that the testing is already over. However, upon entering, the young man sees the frightened face of his ward, Jin. A little earlier, Khan, having climbed onto the head of the summoned golem, was heading towards the portal. Having found a shortcut, the protagonist clears the path for the creature. Daisung urges the golem to move faster. The guy uses fire to continue clearing the path of obstacles. The people in the broadcast room finally realize that the guy is using summoning techniques unknown to them. Among themselves, observers discuss whether this can be done with the help of aura. An unknown girl standing next to the blonde from the association says that now it is not testing that is taking place, but a real reality show. Suddenly, a fist hits a table in the hall. Many people turn around at the noise and see an irritated Lee Sogu. The man is angry about what is happening during testing. Someone wants to calm down the head of the Red Horse clan, but his people ask them not to approach. Finally, Sogu calms down and apologizes for his behavior, explaining that he was excited by the guy's abilities. Huang, watching this, notes to himself that this is what Sogu deserves because he couldn't even imagine that everything would go wrong. The man thinks to himself that his student Shinn should also arrive soon. Meanwhile, in the forest, Jin is angry at Han for his prank. Shin-chon immediately runs up to the portal. Thinking that there is no way Jin could lose to someone like a girl, he rushes towards the teleporter. At the second level, participants find themselves in a cold climate, on a snowy mountain. Daisung, who arrived on the scene, is outraged that the participants are being tested like this. The guy turns to the golem and lets it go. An artificial intelligence appears in front of Khan and congratulates him on passing to the second level. Daisung turns to the teleporter behind him and wonders if he can start the mission without waiting for the others. The assistant, meanwhile, explains the purpose of the second test, saying that the participants will be divided by strength into 5 people in different places. The point of the second test is to get to the top of the mountain. Khan analyzes the test. He calculates that the altitude is approximately 5 kilometers. As the contestant goes through the test, drones watch, and Daisung regrets that he can't use certain things because of them. Looking down, Han notices Jin and reflects on how awakened C and D-level beings make their living as porters. Standing below, Jin is outraged that everyone's task starts from different points. The guy gets angry and tells himself that he will overtake Khan and will not let it go so easily. Suddenly, the guy turns around, sensing someone's presence. This is the same annoying old man who also made it to the second level test. The elderly man convinces himself that he is doing all this for his family, and he needs to think about them. Suddenly, an avalanche falls on the old man. Standing nearby, a satisfied Jin says that he got rid of the old man. At this point, the signal in the broadcast room is lost and the video equipment does not work. Sogu, who had been expecting this, prepares for his plan to start working. The other participants arriving at the second level are nervous about the second level challenge. One of the awakened ones convinces the others that they can handle the task because they are among the strongest. Suddenly, this man will be attacked by Jin. After taking the ampule, the guy from the Red Horse clan noticeably increased his abilities, so he easily deals with other awakened ones. Buoyed by a sense of superiority, Jin is pleased that the injection allows him to quickly dispatch the participants. Meanwhile, Shinn also carries out the task, noting that all the equipment is currently malfunctioning. Khan also sees how the drones break. But this is only to his advantage because he will be able to move faster. Breaking away from the mountain, the guy summons armor. The hero is pleased with himself and calmly falls down, knowing that the technique will soon work. Shinn notices a strong burst of energy and tries to figure out where it comes from. Suddenly, the girl sees Khan flying and is surprised that he can do this with the help of aura. Daisung uses his wings to get to the top faster with his technique. Meanwhile, downstairs, Jin is beating up the test participants. Seeing Khan flying, he wonders where the hero got such abilities from. Not wanting to waste any more time, the young man runs towards the mountain. At this point, in the broadcast room, Huang demands that the test be stopped, since the safety of the participants was always a priority. However, the boss asks to wait a little longer while they try to figure out and restore the connection. Sogu intervenes in the conversation, saying that if those who want to become hunters cannot survive such a small incident, then will they be able to fulfill their duties faithfully? Huang turns angrily to Sog and asks if this was his doing. The Red Horse clan chief says that it would be better to disqualify the weaklings right away. The Soul clan man is angry with Soga, and the young man continues to put pressure on Huang, saying that it would not be better for the man to take a break and retire. Upon reaching the top of the mountain, Han jokingly suggests that he should use the final skill. While other participants climb to the top, some awakened ones remain at the foot of the mountain, including an old man who emerges from under the snow. He is exhausted, but nevertheless alive. The man is glad that he survived and decides that because of the cold, he needs to go down. On level 3, Shinn listens to the objective of the mission: move around the field and fight monsters to earn points. The girl notes that she is in pitch darkness and needs to wait until her eyes adjust. At this moment, an angry Jin approaches her and asks if she has seen Han. The guy tells the girl why she got to the 3rd level faster than him and why she was too lucky. The girl turns around and tells Jin to go his own way and not to piss her off. The girl herself thinks about Huan and his words to be careful with him. She remembers that on the first 2 levels he was faster, but on the 3rd she can't say anything about him yet. The girl stops for a second to check the notification about the functioning of the aura, when suddenly she feels that she has been hit in the side. An angry Jin, standing near Shinn, says that he actually wanted to deal with Han first. Getting to the girl, he jokingly says that she is unlucky. Meanwhile, Khan gradually defeats the enemies he encounters. Daisung says he's spent enough time killing these losers, but after checking the score counter, he believes that the number is not very high. Then the guy goes off to look for other creatures. Meanwhile, in the broadcast room, the boss from the association contacts to find out how things are going with the system. And Sogu, pleased with his work, notes that mixing different factors in an ampule was a good idea. Looking at Huang, Mogu even feels sorry for him, realizing that Shinn will either become disabled or even die. Meanwhile, Shinn turns to Jin and asks what he's up to. The guy looks at her, licks his bloody fingers and says that he thought she would be docile since she was a girl. For a moment, Jin is distracted and misses the girl's blow. Shinn cleanly kicks the guy in the face. After the blow, Jin comes to his senses and sees that the girl has disappeared and is hiding. Shinn hid behind the boulders, examining her wound, having taken off her protective jacket before doing so. While the girl is healing her wound, Jin sneaks up on her, happy to have found her. The girl doesn't get flustered and deftly attacks the guy in the groin, having thrown her tracksuit at him before doing so. Shinn continues to beat Jin while he is disoriented. While the guy is calling the girl names, she takes a stand and says that she actually has a name. She uses a technique from the Soul clan and introduces herself by saying that she is the ace of her clan. After killing the guy, she says that Jin can't possibly be human because he's more disgusting than monsters. Realizing that the girl is no longer in danger, Shinn turns around and leaves. Meanwhile, Khan, who has killed a large number of monsters again, is furious that his counter remains unchanged and has broken. The guy grabs his head and nervously says that he doesn't understand what they want from him. Meanwhile, Shinn continues walking in the cave and wonders why she can't see the other participants. Suddenly, someone's body flies past her. An enraged Jin stands behind Shinn. The girl rushes away from him. Turning around to make sure it was Jin, the girl doesn't understand how this happened, because she definitely killed him. Suddenly, the guy is right in front of her and she hits his arm and falls. Jin wastes no time and begins to beat the girl with all his might. Lifting up the exhausted Shinn, the guy says that he will kill her in the most painful way. After hitting Shinn hard in the stomach, the girl screams in pain. Jin leans over to her and tells her that she can scream and beg for mercy and maybe someone will hear her. Mockingly, the guy adds that it was he who destroyed all the equipment. Suddenly, Shinn gouges out his eyes while he is distracted. Given some time while Jin recovers, Shinn tries to leave. The girl encourages herself, slowly crawling away from Jin. However, she doesn't make it in time, and the recovered guy lifts her up by the neck, yelling at her and saying that because of her, his number of lives was halved. Just as Jin was about to finish off Shinn, he heard someone's voice from the side. Turning around, he sees Khan watching what is happening. Evil Genie looks at the guy and recognizes the number 104. Throwing Shinn away, the guy says that he was waiting for Daisung. Gathering his strength, Jin jumps on Han. However, Daisung passes by the guy and he doesn't understand how he did it. Jin stops, trying to understand what happened. Han leans over to Shinn to examine her. Khan understands that the girl seems to have recovered. Jin turns to the main character again and says that he is as talented as he is. Daisung asks if Jin Lee did this to Shinn. He replies that the girl herself is to blame for getting confused, and he merely brought her to her senses. But Khan interrupts him and says that he knew about the point counter. Jin ignores his question and plans to use the technique to kill Daisung. The guy adds that he completely forgot about the protective suit, because if it breaks, he's done for. While Jin is figuring out the counter, Han already punches him in the face. Clutching his face, Jin curses Daisung. The main character doesn't waste time and uses fire abilities to attack. Jin defends himself from the flames, saying that these are all futile attempts. But the main character in the meantime calls upon the technique of imprisoning souls, and all the captured creatures appear behind him. Daisung angrily tells Jin that he brought out his hellish nature in him. Meanwhile, in reality, it is reported that the connection has been restored on the second level, but on the third, repairs will take about another half hour. The leader of the association orders that security be sent to the second level, and another squad should be deployed to the third level. And Sogu, completely calm, says that there is no point in worrying so much because everyone who is being tested is a future hunter. Meanwhile, the leader is informed that one corpse and many wounded were found on the second level. The news reports that a system failure occurred during testing, and that the situation has been going on for an hour. He who is listening to the news remembers that Han is on probation, so he gets ready to go to the complex and find out everything as it is. Meanwhile, on the third level, Jin runs away from Han in fear. However, before he can escape, his leg is cut off. The boy falls in pain, realizing that he only has one life left. Daisung comes closer to Jin and asks if he is really being reborn like the bugs in hell. At this moment, the connection is restored and a picture appears, and Lee Sogu looks closely at the screen. However, Jin at this moment gets down on his knees and begs Han to spare him because he only has one life left. Daisung mockingly says that it's a shame that the guy only has one life left because he wanted to check if Jin would live if he was cut in half. The guy understands that even if Chen is cut in half, even the properties of the ampule will not help him. The main character looks around and sees that somewhere one camera is working. Khan tells the boy that he will allow it if he answers 3 questions honestly. After threatening Jin with a weapon, he falls silent in anticipation. Khan threatens the guy that if he lies, he will stab him. Daisung asks his question, asking if it's just Jin cheating here or if there's someone else. Hearing this question, Sogu starts to get nervous. Jin begins to stutter, not knowing what to answer. Khan waits for an answer and puts pressure on the guy, saying that perhaps it's worth splitting it in half. Out of fear, Jin asks not to kill him and says that he is alone. Daisung doesn't calm down and asks who made Jin do all this. Jin is nervous and understands that first he needs to get away from the guy alive. He makes up his mind and tells Han that this was all a plan by the head of the Red Horse clan. Han asks about the Lee Sogu clan. Everyone in the broadcast room turns to look at the young man Soga, rolling around among themselves, wondering if this is true. The leader is angry at Jin for giving him away. He turns around and shouts that it was Jin himself who started all this, but decided to pin it on Soga. The young man is distracted by the leader of the association, who says that the proceedings will take place during the investigation by the hunter's inspection. Sogu understands to himself that he will not be able to get out of here. The young man calms down and says that he will arrive at the inspection office at the appointed time. Sogu leaves the room and curses Jin for repaying him like this. One of Mogu's assistants asks if there was any need to bow his head. The head of the clan continues to swear at what would have happened if he had blurted out even the slightest bit of unnecessary stuff there. If that happened, Huang would be absolutely happy. The man from the Soul clan is furious after Lee Sogu left. The association's leader thanks Huang for keeping him, but the man replies that he did not do this for everyone present. The association's leader calls his subordinates and orders them to go to the testing area to stop the trial. Meanwhile, Han asks his third question and asks if Jin has another life left. The frightened boy asks what this question means. Jin understands to himself that whether he lies or tells the truth, he will be divided in half in any case, so the outcome is the same. At this moment, the artificial intelligence appears and declares Han Daesung the winner of the challenge. The main character is surprised that the announcement appeared so suddenly. Jin timidly congratulates Han on his victory, saying that he is a worthy S-level hunter. Daesung, despite everything, cuts the guy in half. With a smile, Han says that Jin lied, and he still has one more life left. Turning back to the wounded Shinn, Daesung sees her recovering. Meanwhile, medics run into the portal to the 3rd level. The association's leader, Pak, who had been watching the broadcast from his office the entire time, finishes watching. Next to him stands his subordinate, saying that representatives of the 10 clans have arrived. The girl adds that Han Daesung already showed Class S at the 1st level. The man asks the girl if John is the first hunter after Li Chang. While looking through Daesung's file, Park tells his subordinate to bring such a person into their organization. People in the association's lobby discuss among themselves what happened during the testing. The system reports that due to unforeseen circumstances, the selection criteria have changed, and the main indicator has become passing the 1st level of the test. Many people start to complain that the threshold for passing is too low, since this is only the 1st level. A photo of Daesung appears on the screen with his A level assigned to him. Chanho calls the main character and asks where he is. Suddenly, the guy turns around sharply, finding out that Han is in the S-level break room. Daesung is happily relaxing in a massage chair, resting after a tough test. Ho comes to him and asks what happened here. Daesung replies that the association secretary told him to rest here. A friend is surprised that his secretary contacted him. Han continues by saying that he has become an A-class hunter, with the potential for S-class. Ho is amazed by his friend's success, jokingly saying that Han will now be able to build a house with his own money. He adds that outside, everyone is shocked by the protagonist's success because of his potential. Meanwhile, in the lobby, everyone is discussing Khan and how to get his associations when suddenly someone comes out of the elevator. The same old man comes out of the elevator shouting that he has won, and journalists immediately rush to him. The man introduces himself as Daesung. The reporters are surprised that Daesung appeared in front of them, and they suspect that he is the winner. At first, the old man is frightened that he has attracted so much attention while the journalists ask their questions. Someone guesses that this is not Han Daesung at all, and in fact it turns out that the old man is Han Daesung, who took 20th place and is just a border guard. Meanwhile, in the place where the testing took place, they are still evacuating and rescuing the wounded awakened. One of the rescuers reports that they have searched all 3 levels but still have not found Jin. Having received the order to close the passage, the man irritably says, "Did the guy from the Red Horse clan really manage to escape from here?" At this time, the news is on air, where they talk about testing. The main character's mother sorts through her clothes and says that it wouldn't hurt to buy her son something new, and wonders whether the market will be open in the morning. Suddenly, a photo of the son appears on the air, and it is announced that he has become a level A hunter, but maybe a level 6 hunter of level S. The woman, seeing this, is frightened and surprised by such news. Mom calls her daughter to see the news, and Jisoo comes to the woman. Seeing her brother on the screen, the girl is as amazed as her mother at her brother's success. At this moment, Khan comes home. Both women look at the guy in shock, and he, suspecting why they look like that, asks what happened. Meanwhile, people from the inspector's office, led by Kim Seong-soo, arrive at the Red Horse clan, informing them that from now on all activities of the clan are banned. Standing in Lee Sogu's office, the man adds that all the hunters should also be relieved of their duties. The head of the clan sits at the table and says how terrible a light he is being portrayed in. Sogu understands to himself that he relied too much on himself, and Jin also betrayed him, so from now on he needs to be careful. Kim orders Sog that he needs to go with them to the inspector's office. However, Sogu has other plans and gets up from the table and says that when you do dangerous things, unexpected things can happen, and it is foolish to trust Jin's words. Kim stands his ground and says that it's better for Sogu to go with them without causing trouble. An angry Sogu approaches the inspector and asks if he knows how he got to where he is now. Kim remembers to himself that Lee Sogu was once the second most important in the clan, but soon took over after the mysterious death of the former leader, so it makes sense to be wary of the young man. Sogu begins to use his technique and mockingly says what the association was thinking, sending only 2 people towards him. The inspector prepares to defend himself and warns his partner, Chan. The frightened young man is nervous behind Kim's back, not knowing what to do. The inspector begins using his technique, shouting at Young that if they want to survive, they need to kill the clan leader before he does. Sogu also says that it looks like Kim had to pay for his place. Suddenly, a frightened Jong pierces the chief inspector's back. The young man apologized to his boss, saying that it wasn't him doing all this. Sogu, who deftly controls his equipment, mockingly says how many questions the management will have for deciding to fight among themselves. A wounded Kim asks Sogu if this is his plan. Ignoring the inspector's question, Lee Sogu uses the puppet's aura to kill Kim with the help of Jong. The distraught and frightened young man asks for forgiveness from his deceased boss. Sogu, meanwhile, comes out of his office, joining his subordinates, saying that they need to warn the association what happens if he is disturbed. Sometime after the exam, Huang comes to visit his student. The doctor tells the man that the girl will never be able to become a hunter because her aura is depleted. Huang is angry at Lee So-gu for everything he did during the exam, noting that the young man will face retribution. Meanwhile, at home, the main character is scolded by his mother, saying that she does not want him to become a hunter because she will worry about the danger. The woman adds that although she saw on the news how successful her son was, danger is danger. Listening to this, Han recalls the words of his friend Chang Ho that almost 99% of families do not allow their relatives to join the ranks of hunters. Daesung's mother continues, saying that she fears that the boy may fall into a coma again. However, the main character interrupts his mother and says that he has already signed an agreement with his friend's clan. The sister, in shock, asks again if Han really made a contract with the Soul Clan. Daesung confirms this and summons a small teleporter from where he intends to get something. A moment later, the boy takes out a bag overflowing with money and places it in front of his mother and Jisoo. Pleased, Khan says that he will receive a deposit from the clan and gives the money to the family so that they can pay off their debts and use the remainder for their own needs. Mom and Jisoo look at the money in shock, amazed that the hero receives such a sum of money. The main character reassures the family, saying that he will earn even more and that they only need to run the household and he will take care of everything else. Noticing how his sister and mother are holding back tears, Khan calms them down, saying that on the contrary, they should be happy. Looking at his happy relatives, Daesung feels that if this is his reward for returning from hell, then he is satisfied with everything. Meanwhile, at the association, Jong remembers his dead mentor Kim. The elder always helped and took care of Chan, but now he is killed by Sogu's technique. Now the student stands in the morgue in front of the corpse and cries. The boss from the association comes to the young man and says that this is his fault, because no one thought that the head of the Red Horse clan was so crazy. Out of anger and hatred towards Sogu, Jong declares that he will kill him himself. At this moment, Pak, the head of the association, approaches the chief and demands that all the hunters be caught. The chief is surprised and asks whether it is necessary to catch even the preparatory squad. To this, the man receives an order from Pak to disband the entire Red Horse clan and capture its leader, Lee Sogu, by any means necessary. Meanwhile, the next morning, Han wakes up to a huge number of messages. Among the messages is a notification from Chang Ho's friend, so the protagonist leaves the house to call him back. A friend tells the hero that Portal Roof S won at auction, so now money will flow like a river. At this moment, armed workers of the association arrive at the main building of the Red Horse clan. The operation is commanded by Jin, a level A awakened being who gives orders on the sequence of actions. The defeated resistors are ready to be killed, so after the briefing, Jin calls for the operation to begin. However, running into the building, the man and Jongwoo, who followed him, see many wounded or even dead people from the Red Horse clan. Confused, Jongwoo doesn't understand what happened and asks Jin what to do now. The person in charge of the operation orders the rearguard to deal with everything and asks the rest to follow him. In the depths of the building, an exhausted Huang sits and rests. Enraged, Jongwoo breaks through even further into the clan building with a knife, hoping to finally find Soga. However, soon the young man stumbles upon the fresh corpse of the head of the Red Horse clan. At first, Jongwoo doesn't believe that Sogu is dead, but Jin stops the young man, confirming that the clan leader is dead. Also, the person in charge of the operation turns to Huang, who is sitting next to him, and says that this was too much for personal revenge. However, the man says that he only killed people outside, but did not touch Soga. Soon, the news of Sogu's death became public knowledge and was broadcast on the news that An Daesung had on. The old man is indignant that no one calls him. Because no one took Daesung in, the old man created his own clan, but unfortunately it was not successful. However, a moment later the phone starts ringing. At this moment, Han and his friend Ho are driving through the city, who is surprised that the guy accepted all 10 offers from the clans. Ho explains that his clan has the best equipment, but Han brushes it off, not understanding why he needs it, and thinks to himself that if his friend sees armor from hell, he will faint. Daesung then asks his friend if he can make money in a sea-level portal. Ho states that portal missions at this level cost 50 billion, and taxes alone will cost 30 billion. Han is shocked to hear such amounts and is indignant, and Ho adds that if he can get hold of the ether core, he can make money. The friend adds that Khan has been assigned an escort who will have to go with him into the portal. However, Daisung states that Ho should go with him too, and his friend is surprised. Han explains that he himself appointed Ho as his escort and entrusted all the paperwork to his sister Jisoo because he was too lazy to do it himself. Upon arrival at the location of the portal, Chan Ho is asked for a certificate. The young man shows the document to the soldier, who is surprised that only 2 people were taken for the mission. Ho agrees with the military man, saying that he thinks so too. But his friend is a psychopath who imagines himself to be very strong and decided that he can handle the task alone. The soldier says that nothing makes sense, so he will open the portal, and gives instructions to those responsible for this. Ho addresses Daesung one last time, explaining that the subject is dangerous and asking if he has changed his mind. Khan calms his friend with a joke and drags him towards the portal. Ho protests by saying that if he escapes into a portal in the middle of a mission, it doesn't mean he's an unfaithful friend. Meanwhile, the association is watching a recording from the Red Horse clan building, the moment of Lee Sogu's death. Something lifts the young man up and Sogu is completely helpless. An unknown hand appears from the portal and reaches out to the young man to rip out his heart. Sogu dies instantly, and the unknown person's hand disappears into the portal. Pak asks the association's employees if it is possible to find out who made the recording. Jin explains that there is only one surveillance camera and that checks are still being conducted. And the department head from the association adds that after the autopsy of Sogu's body, it was also not possible to find out who was the carrier of the aura. Meanwhile, Daesung arrives at the portal that Han and his friend entered and says that he is responsible for today's processing. The soldier at the post wonders why the old man arrived so early, since they entered the portal only recently, and asks if the hunter who took on the mission is really Han Daesung. The soldier checks the information and confirms it, which makes the old man very happy, and is glad that he got into this case so well and will be able to cross paths with Khan. A few days ago at the testing site, Jin, chosen by Sogu, was able to hide and regain his strength. The young man is angry that he was treated this way and that he was left alone, so he wants to take revenge, when suddenly someone's voice calls out to him. A huge eye appears in front of the guy, the same one that appeared in front of Lee Sogu before his death. Meanwhile, Han and Chang Ho enter the area through a portal. Ho has never been in a portal before, so he's a little nervous. Han looks into the distance and says that there are many enemies, so it is not surprising that the portal is in a war zone, to which Ho does not understand what enemies he is talking about. Looking into the distance, Ho sees huge lizards running straight towards them. Daesung takes out his weapon and says that it would be more convenient to finish them all off at once. The protagonist prepares for an attack and jumps very high, leaving his defeated friend below to watch. Khan towers over the monsters and swings his arm to strike. The guy uses the volcano technique to hit his enemies. The flames swirl around the lizards, killing them instantly. Ho, watching what is happening, is shocked and wonders if this is really his friend. The Khan, having made sure that the enemies are finished, approaches his friend. Ho jokingly begins to scold Daesung for not telling him earlier how strong he is, which only made Ho worry. Putting away his weapon, Daesung replies that this is exactly why he decided to show his abilities only now. After some thought, Ho declares that he has decided to propose to Daesung to create a new world-class clan. Finally, the friends return back through the same portal, which surprises the military because too little time has passed. The military begins to panic that something is wrong with the portal and that they should call in specialists. But Daesung stops them, saying that someone is coming out of there. Satisfied, Ho and Han emerge from the portal and declare that the task is completely completed. Daesung appears in front of the main character and hands him his business card, adding that he is responsible for today's overtime. Ho wonders why the old man is alone, since he is from the clan of gatherers. Anne explains that it's just a day job and hands over another business card to Ho, who notices the same names of the old man and his friend, and proudly announces that he will do everything to live up to his name. The old man adds that he will always be responsible for the processing, to which Han silently leaves and Ho hurries to catch up with him. Sometime later, the main character and his relatives visit the new apartment before buying it. While the realtor talks about the house, Jisoo studies it herself and admires the apartment. Daesung's mother asks the man how much the apartment costs. He replies that officially it is 17 billion, and in fact, according to the deal, it is 8. The woman is surprised by such a large sum, and the realtor hurries to explain that such a high price is due to the proximity to the Hunter's building. The man adds that safety is the most important thing at the moment, and he has heard that Khan has become a capable hunter. Jisoo chimes in, reminding them that her brother had become a high-level hunter and was all over the news. Daisung says he likes the house and wonders if he can get a discount on it if he signs it now. The man then replies that there is no need for this, since Khan is a hunter, a preferential contract can be made. Hearing that S-class hunter Lee Chang-shik lives in one of these houses, Han irritably asks how much cheaper the hunters are getting their housing. The realtor gets a little scared and says that hunters are given about 100 billion. Mom and Jisoo hear the huge amount and are amazed. Khan thinks to himself that this way, he will be able to buy an entire house which costs 80 billion. That same evening, a young girl walks down the street alone. At this moment, she runs into an unknown person and apologizes. In front of the girl stands a tall young man with a hood on his head and a creepy expression on his face. He tells the victim that she has a choice and she should be grateful. The next morning, at the police station morgue, they examine the body of that same girl and note that she died in the same way as Sogu. Jin and Jeonwoo arrived from the association and realize that no one but the awakened ones could have done such a thing. Jin says that in addition to the open portals, a killer has appeared in Korea who rips out hearts. Youngwoo asks his mentor to entrust the case to him, and he promises that he will catch the killer, while Jin thinks over the details of the case to himself. Finally, the brunette tells his protege Sean out loud that for now, he is working on portals. Addressing a police officer, Jin asks that information about the murders not be leaked to the media. The man also adds that they will assign the necessary people from the inspectorate. Elsewhere, in a new place, Jin from the Red Horse clan awakens. The young man is in a special capsule with the necessary life support equipment. The guy starts to look around the room and sees an unknown middle-aged man not far from him. The stranger sees that Jin has woken up and is approaching, and the guy is nervous because he doesn't understand where he is. The man approaches the capsule and asks the boy if the place looks like the Red Horse clan's laboratory. It finally dawns on Jin that he is in the same place where he was once injected with an ampule before an exam. The stranger tells Jin that it looks like the drug he gave Sogu helped, and the head of the clan himself personally asked the boss to help and save Jin. After this, the unknown man introduces himself as Elder Hans Roman. Jin calms down a bit and remembers the huge eye, then asks Roman if he is alive. The man replies that it is better to consider that the boy was reborn as Hans's servant. Jin doesn't understand what the man is talking about, but he says that he will give the guy even more power if he follows him. Meanwhile, in the association building, Ho is talking on the phone with Ho. Daisung tells his friend that he is going to clear the portals one by one because he needs a discount on a new home. Ho, who doesn't understand when Han managed to buy the apartment, eventually gives in and agrees to his friend's plan. The friend also tells Daisung to buy the necessary equipment. Instead, Khan is transported to the Pantheon and chooses one of 6 missions. The system notifies the guy about the mission in the Iron Fortress, and Khan confirms his move. The teleport takes the hero to the right place, and Daesung finds himself in front of a huge fortress in new, unusual equipment. The guy notes how it gets on his nerves. Meanwhile, in Korea, a department head from the association issues instructions on measures to take against a serial killer. At this moment, a girl from the association department enters the office, stating that the Ocean Clan failed the mission in the B-level portal. A colleague asks the girl if this clan is really that strong, since there is Baekharan and many other high-level awakened ones there. The girl replies that the monsters were stronger and surpassed Baekharan's skills, so an S-level hunter was needed. The head of the department, listening to this, understands that if the already open portal is not cleared within 12 hours, a breach will appear in it. However, it was good that it was Baekharan who asked for help. Finally, the man orders that Lee Chang-sik and Seo Dong be notified of Hai Rin's request. The worker agrees and adds that no one can refuse the number 1 in Korea. The girl begins to discuss some other hunters with her colleague, but the head of the department interrupts, saying that he doesn't care. The main thing is that the portal doesn't break. Meanwhile, at the Nadezhda orphanage, 2 boys play hunter and monster. They are watched by Seo Dong, who jokingly scares the children. The man and the children begin to play and fight playfully. Suddenly, a shelter employee approaches them and attracts Don's attention. The man gets distracted and the girl explains that there was an urgent call from the association, to which Don sadly notes that he can't even rest. After studying the information, the man leaves and the employee wishes him luck. At the last moment, the man turns to the children and the girl and encourages them, saying that he is the best hunter in the country. Meanwhile, the number 1 hunter, Lee Chang-shik, emerges from the sea-level portal. He is met by a girl who informs him that an official request for help has been received from Baekharan. The young man stops and listens to the information about Karin's help. Meanwhile, in the Pantheon, an incomprehensible seal is formed under the Khan. At the foot of the fortress, a huge guard appears, resembling a huge predatory cat. The protagonist looks at the guard and thinks to himself that it is dangerous to even walk near his body now. Daesung's only equipment now is a sword and an ice shield. Khan sits down on the ground and thinks about how bad his memory is, since he can't remember how he knocked down the boss last time. The weapon lies in front of the guy, and he carefully remembers his tactics. Finally, an idea comes to Han's mind. Meanwhile, in Korea, crowds of journalists appear outside the B-level portal. Many are starting to broadcast live from the hotspot where the cleanup is taking place. The association's employees, seeing this, wonder how the information leaked. Suddenly, the reporters start looking around and recognize the approaching figure as a representative of the Ocean Clan. A young brunette, Beck Haran, approaches the portal with a charming smile as the surrounding journalists ask her questions. Many reporters are amazed by the beauty of the clan representative and shower her with compliments. Karin approaches one of the journalists and asks him for a microphone. Turning to the rest of the reporters, the girl announces that the portal will be cleared, and she has asked for help from two of the most powerful hunters in the country. The journalists are amazed and start talking among themselves about those very hunters that Beck mentioned. The girl confirms that she called Lee Chang-sik and Seo Dong, who had already arrived at the portal. The two strongest hunters are about to go inside when they are noticed, so they linger for a while. Chan-shik, a young blonde man, says that Karin was able to skillfully turn her failure into a whole scene, to which Dawn, a brunette, supports his comrade's thought. At this moment, Karin, pleased with herself, approaches them. The journalists continue to film the three hunters, delighted that the Lysobak tandem is going to clear the B-level portal. Meanwhile, in the Pantheon, Khan attacks the fortress guard. Finally, the enraged creature awakens. Daesung gathers his strength and notes that one mistake on his part means certain death, so he needs to be more careful. An angry predator approaches its enemy, intending to kill him. At that moment, the guard slips on the melted ice shield, and Daesung concentrates on his next attack. The guy runs up to the fallen guard. Leaning towards the boss, Han discovers a red seal. Using the weapon, the protagonist pierces the seal on the monster's body, thus destroying it. Daesung throws his sword and wooden shield to the ground, saying he won't need them anymore. A notification pops up in front of the hero that he can enter the fortress thanks to the destroyed seal, to which Daesung says that first he needs to find a weapon. Inside the fortress, the guy is surrounded by various traps. The Khan carefully probes the wall of the fortress, intending to find a special mechanism. After finding it and pressing on the hidden stone, the doors open for Khan. The treasury of Balark opens before the guy, accessible to the hero for only 5 minutes. Daesung moves closer to the weapons and grabs the dark sword, which he says is not that strong, but without it he cannot enter Balark's room. Looking around the treasury, the guy sees chests with money and other valuables. Daesung looks at the find and thinks. A moment later, the system notifies the boy that he can enter Balark's room, and Khan prepares for battle. Meanwhile, in the portal of level B, the Lysobak tandem fights monsters, and Dawn is unhappy that the opponents are too noisy. The man concentrates his strength and uses his weapon to jump forward straight at the monster. Lightning from So Dawn's technique stuns the huge lizard enemy. Dawn gives the command to attack the monster, and the rest of the hunters follow the order. Standing behind, Karin shouts words of encouragement to Dawn. Lee, covered in blood, stands behind the girl and asks if she will definitely go on a date with him if he kills all the monsters. Seeing the state the young man was in, the girl hurried to use her healing technique. Changshik feels much better, and the girl asks when he managed to hurt himself like that. With a smile, the young man points to a nearby carcass, saying that it is a gift for her. Karin sees the huge head of the Ogre King next to him. The girl is shocked that Changshik was able to kill such a monster alone. Taking advantage of this, the blonde puts his hand on Karin's shoulder, and the girl sternly tells her to take her hands away. Not far from the couple, hunters led by Sodong try to kill the monster, but its skin is too thick that even the aura does not help. Changshik asks Baek to keep her promise about the date with a smile, and he himself approaches his partner Dong. Karin looks at the young man who has left and asks herself if she promised anything. Meanwhile, in the Pantheon, Khan reaches the final boss and is about to open the potion vials. Khan decides to use the potions to the maximum. The system begins to notify the guy about the improvement of many characteristics thanks to the contents of the bubbles. Feeling much better, Daesung prepares for his next fight. Entering the next location, Daesung sees a huge boss in front of him, Balark. The guy greets his opponent with a smile. Balark sees the protagonist and a moment later summons a huge fire dragon. Khan uses the blood naturalization technique to counter the creature. Meanwhile, in reality, the streamer, that same waiter, Yang, begins a weekly broadcast about hunters. First, the guy suggests looking at the ranking of hunters this week, and the top is opened by Li Changshik, who became a hunter as a hobby and is the chairman of the Joseon clan. Next in the ranking is Seodong, who heads the Hope Orphanage and has become a father to many orphans. And in third place, the beauty Baek Harin, from the Ocean clan. Yan explains that there was an incident at a B-level portal this week, but the Lee Sobak tandem resolved the issue within 6 hours. Then, the streamer remembers what else he wanted to show the viewers. Yan brings up a photo of Han Daesung on the screen and begins to remember seeing him during the orc attack. The streamer is a little surprised to see the guy again. Meanwhile, in the office, Roman looks through the news and notes that the hunters have begun to clear the portals very quickly. Colleagues address the man by a false name, offering to have a drink after work, but Roman refuses. After opening a map of Korea, the man decides that he needs to change his current circumstances. In the Pantheon, Khan continues to fight the dragon, dodging the creature's attacks. During a break, the guy jokingly says that the spilled blood brings back memories of old days. A second later, Balark himself stands up and joins the fight. However, Daisung does not lose heart and prepares to fight him. Khan begins to fend off Balark's attacks with his sword. At one point, the guy complains and asks why his opponent is so strong. Balark also uses his abilities, and he gains wings. Daisung breaks past his opponent and turns around, mockingly saying that he is surprised by Balark's transformation. A moment later, someone unknown begins to appear on the field in front of the main character. Khan stops to study the stranger. The unknown, without a face or a clear body shape, is irritated that someone dared to disturb the peace of the holy apostles. Meanwhile, in reality, the hooded serial killer continues to kill victims, hoping to arrange a sacrifice. And in the office of the portal search company, Roman, pretending to be Jake, contacts the maniac. The killer reports that he performed a sacrifice using the hearts of those previously killed. Roman hears this and replies that he will let the hunting association know about this. The maniac asks his boss when he should stop making sacrifices. Roman replies with a smile that only when they have collected enough scapegoats. Meanwhile, back at the Pantheon, the notification system has completely broken down, so Han realizes that he is facing a very strong opponent. However, this does not frighten the hero too much. He is looking forward to another battle. An unknown person threatens the guy, saying that he is insignificant and will not be able to stop the course of the universe. Having attacked Daesung, the creature thinks that it has won easily, but the hero rushes forward towards the enemy. Khan pierces the unknown with his weapon. However, the creature looks at Daesung mockingly and says that his attacks and weapon will do nothing. The Khan angrily asks the stranger what will affect him. At some point, the guy receives a system notification about a technique that can only be used in Hell, depending on the level of implementation, which at the time of the battle is 33%. However, thanks to his skill, Khan manages to catch the creature off guard and suppress it. The unknown person intends to escape to report to his superiors, but does not make it in time, and the system notifies the hero that the heavenly inhabitant has been destroyed. After winning, Khan approaches the tall structure and touches the wall. As a reward for completing the mission, Daesung was given the opportunity to lead Balark and some other creatures. The satisfied protagonist sits on the throne and mockingly speaks of dragons and addresses the subordinate creatures that he will call upon them when they are needed. Continuing to sit on the throne, the guy thinks that all he has left to do is remove all the portals and earn money. The newly formed Level A portal is being monitored in the association building and initial security measures are being taken. Pak comes into the observation room and asks if the new portal is similar to the one that appeared 5 years ago and destroyed the area around it, and the workers confirm this. The head of the department reports to the manager that the portal is definitely Level A. Pak orders all hunters to be gathered and to request additional assistance from the World Hunter Organization. The head of the department nods and says that everything will be done. In the Pantheon, Khan checks the information from the system about his level of implementation and does not understand why it is still so low. The guy sadly says that he will have to earn a few more skills. After some thought, Daesung decides to move to the Ant Valley using the system. Meanwhile, a meeting is being held in the building of the Hunters Association with all the important people. The department head greets everyone and says that a meeting is starting on ways to solve the problem of the A-level portal in Gangnam. At this point, the Korean police take Hwang to jail. The man puzzles over who was able to kill Lee Sogu because he is quite a strong opponent. And Hwang's student Shinn is still in the hospital and is poorly nourished. The nurse scolds the girl for not eating anything and adds that she will remove the IV since it is of no use. Shinn ignores the nurse's words and thinks about her failed exam, and regrets that she let her mentor down. In the association's conference room, the meeting continues and Ryu Jones, the head of the Fortress clan, reports that the hunter So has been missing for a whole month since she went on an investigation. Marble Clan Deputy Chohan reports that his clan leader, who is also the 5th-ranked S-level hunter, is in Silicon Valley developing an aura weapon, but is preparing to return. The head of the association, hearing this, says that this time too the Lysobak tandem will be responsible for protection. Seodong jokingly says that there is no other way out. If they cannot stop the enemies, they will die. Lee Changshik says that he will go on the mission since Baek Heron promised him a date. A girl interrupts the conversation and, surprised, reminds the blonde that she already went on a date with him and treated him to meet. Lee and Heron start arguing, and Dawn tells the people from the association that they need A-level volunteers for support. The workers begin to talk among themselves that if the Lee Si-Bak tandem manages to clear the A-level portal, it will be the first such case in Korea. Pak sums up the results and orders to find 100 level A volunteers and 10,000 ethers for the hunters. Those sitting at the table in the negotiating room begin to discuss the fact that the number of broadcasts is very large. Meanwhile, outside, a broadcast is being broadcast, notifying citizens of the danger. A large number of hunters are already gathering near the portal, at first not understanding why they are here. Lee So-Bak are going to be the first to enter the portal, and Don encourages his partners that the sooner they finish here, the sooner Baek and Lee can go on a date. The brunette wishes his partners good luck, and the three of them enter the portal. Inside the portal, Don gives orders and tells everyone to check their gear. Lee moves away from Baek, telling her to stay put. The girl reports to Don that Chanchik has gone on reconnaissance. The brunette doesn't understand why the girl reports to him about Lee, because he can do it himself, but then leaves everything as is. Having analyzed the situation, Don orders the hunting parties. In reality, Ho is trying to call his friend Han and is annoyed that he hasn't picked up for so long. Daesung, not understanding what happened, tells his friend about his move, and Ho says that an emergency happened. The guy tells Han that a level A portal has opened in Gangnam, and the association demands that all hunters go there. Daesung learns that an emergency happened near his new home and wonders why so many people are gathering. Ho explains that it was precisely because of this type of portal that the big rift occurred 5 years ago, and the hunters barely managed to close it back then. Khan leaves the house, intending to head to the right point, and asks his friend if he will be promoted if he can close the portal. Meanwhile, inside the portal, a huge number of blood wolves are running towards the hunters. The hunters begin to notice them from all sides and realize that they are surrounded. Ethers used in battle appear if you defeat monsters inside the portal. Humanity is heading towards collapse due to unequal development and many other problems. And it was at this time that ethers appeared that possessed energy that allowed changing the time of people's disappearance to their life. The important thing is that if you charge the aura weapon with ether and implant it into the awakened one, you can improve his skills, so ethers are very important. Knowing this, Dan commands and calls on everyone to accept the broadcast. The wolves are getting closer and closer, and the hunters one by one begin to receive the ether. Lee Changshik approaches the crowd of hunters. The young man uses the technique of ejecting an aura over a wide spectrum. Dawn runs past Baek Heron, saying that Lee has attracted the attention of the wolves and the girl needs to cover her partners. The girl does not hesitate and tells him to trust her. Changshik continues to attract opponents. Dawn launches full ether activation. Lee, running past the brunette, tells his partner that he is now leaving the wolves to him. The man activates his technique and jumps out at the enemies, preparing to strike them with lightning. The equipment kills enemies one after another. Baek Heron activates his aura technique. The other hunters are happy. They see the girl's technique in action for the first time and feel it on themselves. Lee Changshik takes off and runs towards the remaining enemies, motivating the rest of the hunters to follow him. Meanwhile, in reality, in a bad neighborhood in Korea, the remaining members of the Red Horse clan are dealing drugs. At some point, a man runs up to them, shouting for everyone to run away. One man regrets that he came here. At this point, a police car pulls up to the group and the police inform them that if anyone escapes now, everyone will be charged with illegal drug trafficking. The men take out their guns, preparing to fight the police. However, the police are not taking any action. Suddenly, Jin from the Red Horse clan gets out of the car. The men from the clan are shocked that the boys survived and do not understand how this is possible. Jin extends his hand to them and tells them to follow him. Meanwhile, inside the portal, the hunters have finally dealt with all the wolves and are happy about it. Baek Heron heals Dawn's wounds with her technique, and he is happy that she helps them so much and says with envy that she can go to portals all the time. However, the girl begins to explain to the man how difficult it is to use the broadcasts, that it is very expensive, and in general, Don himself has taken money for the broadcast more than once and is still in debt. The man bitterly realizes that Karin has started nagging him again. At this moment, somewhere nearby, one of the hunters finds Class B ether. But at that very moment, nothing knocks his head off. A huge white wolf, larger than those the hunters had fought earlier, was approaching. In reality, broadcasts are being conducted near the portal, and it is announced that the situation is still tense. On the news, the presenter talks about the Lysobek hunters entering the portal and asks if they weren't the ones who cleared the portal so quickly last time. The reporter says that last time they actually cleared the portal for a short time. But the current attack has been going on for 10 hours now, and the association continues to gather A-level hunters from different clans. The head of the department asks the blonde in glasses when the hunters from the International Hunters Association are expected to arrive, but she replies that there is no official answer yet. The man says that they are now in a state of extreme limbo, as there is no way to contact those inside the portal. The girl says that military forces and hunters have gathered, and that Chohan should arrive in 8 hours. The department head says that no one should stop trying to contact the rest of the hunters inside the portal. Inside the portal, everyone is preparing to attack the boss. Lee flies straight towards the huge wolf. The guy moves away from the enemy. The wolf wastes no time and attacks the guy, but Lee somehow dodges, but he is wounded. Don enters the fight, saying that the boss is no slouch since he is able to fight back. Changshik stands behind his partner, catching his breath. At that moment, Lee feels like he's being healed by Beckharn's technique, so he turns around to thank her. The girl says to leave gratitude for later, but now the most important thing is to solve the problem here. The guy smiles and charges the air to the fullest. Lee joins Don and uses the technique to defeat the wolf together. The boss makes one last attempt, but the hunters are still stronger. The wolf dies and everyone is happy that Lee Changshik was able to kill him, but Don is indignant that all the attention went to the blonde. Immediately after this, the hunters hear a strange loud sound and do not understand where it comes from. Far ahead, the hunters see a huge horde of wolves and their leader. The leader in the red robe is annoyed that someone has encroached on their land again. Many people start to get nervous, but Don shouts and orders everyone to gather. After some time, something starts to happen in reality. In the association building, everyone understands that the portal is beginning to rupture. The blonde in glasses doesn't understand how this is possible, since the hunters are still inside. The head of the association nervously says that this could be the case, that the entire Lysobak team is dead. The man immediately orders that all reserve hunters in the country be informed of the emergency. At this moment, the leader of the wolves emerges from the portal and orders the hunt to begin. At the gathering place of reserve hunters, Jin, a brunette from the Hunters Association, checks whether the hunters from the Dom clan are there. Following this, the man checks to see if the hunters from the Chang clan are still there. And after that, Jin reaches the Daisung clan. The protagonist responds and says that his level is A. Jin recognizes the guy as the hunter he was ordered to follow. The man explains that everyone was called in to prevent the level A portal from rupturing. Khan says that they won't even be able to pass normally near the portal, and adds that it would be better for his friend to contact him now. Then Daisung realizes that he himself doesn't pick up the phone the first time. Then, all the hunters turn their attention to the portal and see that something is happening. The Khan is looking forward to the battle and is not afraid. An hour before the portal bursts, almost all the hunters are dead. Some hunters still hold out. One young hunter barely defends himself from a white wolf. He begins to lose his grip and loses to his opponent. Not far from him stands Dawn, who shouts to gather up if no one wants to become food for these dogs. A hunter immediately flies out and cuts off the wolf's paw. Changshik is already very tired and irritated, not understanding how much longer they need to hold out. Dawn remembers one artifact, the Absolute Protector. It was given to him by the department head. It was a development from Germany, made from a level S core for counterattack. The man then thought about the cost of such an item. The head of the department says that the leader received the item as a gift, and added that all hunters are like children to him, so let them return alive. Don listens to this and asks to tell the manager that they will all try their best. Inside the portal, Don gathers the people together and prepares to use the attribute. The man bends down to engage the protector. Everyone feels the power and strength of the object and understands that it was used in the exam. The wolves begin to break through to the barrier, but the protector pushes them back. Don is pleased with the development from Germany. At this moment, the leader of the wolves approaches the barrier, intending to destroy the protection. The creature jumps onto the barrier, but it pushes the enemy away. Hunters are glad that they are not so easy to get to. One of those present asks Don what their plan is, to which the brunette replies that now they just need to hold out. Dawn explains that if something doesn't work out, you first need to stay alive and then figure it out. Some hunters talk among themselves and come to the conclusion that there is no plan. It turns out that in the crowd of hunters there is the very same maniac who decides to change the situation with the portal. Something starts to happen to the portal outside, and the leader of the wolves notices it. The outline of the city is visible in the portal. The creature approaches the teleporter, sensing that beyond it he will be able to find something to profit from. The leader and the white wolves cross the portal and run into the military. Monsters defeat armed forces, destroy drones. Because of this, the broadcast is interrupted and people from the association cannot see everything that is happening outside. The department head orders to connect a high-level satellite screen and send reserve units to the portal. Not far from the portal, on the roof, streamer Yang is located, starting a live broadcast from the hotspot. The young man encourages himself that if he can capture interesting footage with a drone, he will become an eternal blogger. The guy turns to the audience asking if they can see everything. In the chat, many people start talking about something being behind the streamer, but he doesn't believe it. However, turning around, the guy discovers a huge white wolf behind his back. Yang is paralyzed with fear, he backs away and screams. The creature lunges forward at the young man, but something cuts off its head. Yang looks at his savior and sees Han Daisung. A moment later, the protagonist disappears and Yang, having come to his senses, rushes to find the drone. Khan approaches the leader of the wolves and says that he does not understand at what point so many dogs appeared in a residential area. The leader of the creatures attacks Daisung, but he blocks the blow. Meanwhile, crowds of people evacuate to bomb shelters, wondering where all the hunters are. Some of them take out their phones and see live what is happening outside. Yan, who is still broadcasting, is surprised to have received a record number of viewers. For a second, the guy wonders if he should run away now. Meanwhile, in the broadcast room at the association, a blonde approaches the department head to show the broadcast. The man recognizes Daisung and tells him to put the broadcast on the screen. The workers recognize the guy who excelled in the exam. The head of the department doesn't understand what he's doing there alone. Meanwhile, outside, Khan continues to fight with the wolves. The creatures prepare to pounce on the hero at once, but Daisung uses a technique and kills the wolves with fire. The leader of the monsters approaches the battle and orders them to clear other places while he himself will deal with Khan. The guy is looking forward to the fight and jokingly asks if the monster will be able to defeat him. The main character uses the summoning technique and creatures from hell come to his aid. Yang sees a huge dragon and a fearsome rider appear in the real world and is amazed. In the broadcast room, the association's workers also see what is happening and are shocked. People are frightened by the sight of the dragon and try to evacuate. Daisung orders the creatures to deal with the white wolves while he takes care of the leader. The summoning dragon and rider deal with the creatures. The genie from the association watching the creature does not understand what is happening and why the dragon is for them. Balark's shadow dismounts from the dragon, about to finish off the white wolves, and is angry that these creatures dared to disturb the overlord. In the bomb shelter, more and more people are watching what is happening live and are completely confused about who is on whose side. Chang Ho arrives at the broadcast room and greets everyone present. The head of the department greets the young man and asks if Ho is sure he is aware of all the events. The man asks the young man to tell him more about Han Daisung. Meanwhile, outside, the leader of the wolves asks Khan who he is. The main character mockingly says that the monster hardly has the right to know this. Daisung blocks a strong attack from his opponent. This doesn't affect the guy in any way. He calmly asks if the monster has finished demonstrating its abilities in front of him. While the wolf defends himself with his weapon, Jean mockingly asks if the boss of the A-level portal is really a bald mongrel. Suddenly, the ruler moves behind Khan and the guy is momentarily lost. The wolf enhances his abilities with an unknown technique. The protagonist turns to face the enemy and prepares to attack. But instead, the leader of the wolves simply turns and runs away, which surprises the hero. As he runs away, the creature thinks about Khan's strange energy and decides that he and his wolves need to return to their territory. Daisung immediately catches up with the wolf, wondering why this creature runs on 2 legs instead of 4, as dogs are supposed to. The main character kicks the opponent, causing him to lose his balance. But Daisung doesn't leave the wolf alone, saying that he didn't allow him to come back. A summoned dragon flies to help the main character. The creature catches up with the wolf lord and defeats him. Meanwhile, hunters emerge from the portal into reality. Dawn is annoyed that no one from the international organization has arrived. Karin quickly heads towards the wounded, saying that he will try to help them here, and the rest who can still fight need to go to the portal boss. The brunette heads towards the boss, and Chanchik stops his partner, offering to at least prepare a little. but Dawn doesn't listen to him. When all the hunters left after the man, Karin was left alone to heal the wounds of the victims. But suddenly she hears a strange sound. Turning around, the girl sees a huge white wolf with its back to her. Before she can do anything, someone cuts off the creature's head. Han Daesung appears next to Heron. The main character asks the girl if she is a hunter. Beck can't understand why the guy is so strong, because even Lee is influenced by the wolves. A moment later, Changshik appears and attacks Han. Karin shouts at his partner, not understanding what he is doing. Lee, slipping past Daesung, is shocked that he is an ordinary person. Stopping and turning towards the main character, Lee does not understand how the guy so deftly dodged his attack. The blonde apologizes to Khan, saying that he mistook him for a monster. Daesung wonders why Changshik mistook him for a monster. Lee explains that only monsters emit an aura like Han's, but even so, the guy feels stronger than them. The protagonist is surprised to himself that there is a hunter who can read his demonic energy. Finally, Changshik introduces himself to the protagonist as the leader of the Joseon clan. After successfully closing the portal, Pot gathers the S-rank hunters in his office and thanks them for their help. Dawn says that the chairman's gift came at just the right time, and the protector saved the lives of many. Lee interrupts the conversation, asking with displeasure how the monsters were able to get out through the portal in the first place. Haran keeps the conversation going, asking about Daesung and how he became a strong hunter so quickly. Pak reassures the hunters that they can ask him about everything themselves, but now it is important to him whether they agree to accept Han into S rank. Dawn replies that there is hardly any need for this, since society has already accepted Daesung as a high-ranking hunter. Karin sadly says that she is for the promotion, but now the association will have such a strong hunter, and they will no longer be used. Changshik agrees to the promotion, saying that there is no way out of it now. Pak asks the opinion of the last S-rank hunter, Chohan. An adult man in a red and white mask replies that Khan had such a high rank from the beginning. Meanwhile, the surviving Yeon starts a live broadcast and introduces a special guest on the air, Han Daesung. The blogger begins to ask the old man how he knows Han Daesung, and the man begins to tell his story of how he met him. At this moment, the main character's friend, Ho, sees that the entire internet is filled with news about Khan. The guy understands that this is a great success for them. Daesung comes to Ho's office and his friend greets the hero. Ho praises Daesung, talks about how precious he is, and Han doesn't understand why Ho once told him to get lost. The guy explains himself, saying that he was simply worried about his friend. Daesung drops the topic and asks why Ho called him. A friend solemnly tells a friend that it is time to pick up the S-rank license. Outside the association building, journalists from different countries crowded together, wanting to meet Han Daesung, who had become famous throughout the world. Sometime later, a raspberry arrives at the main entrance of the building, from which Han and Ho emerge. Pleasant words and praise for the main character are heard everywhere, and he notes that Chan Ho did not lie. A friend immediately appears next to Khan and tells him to wave to his fans. The main character reluctantly waves his hand and joyful cries are heard all around. Inside the association building, the guy is met by Pak and thanks him for closing the A-rank portal, adding that he helped the association a lot. Sitting next to Ho, he replies that they were just doing their job. Pak asks the secretary to help with something. The girl brings a small chest with a Hunter S-rank license card, and Ho says that ordinary people don't get such an honor. Pak congratulates the protagonist on his rank promotion. The man also adds that the association can now help the guy with some things, and Daesung asks about it again. Roman actively follows the news about Khan and is angry at the main character. Pak recalls Chohan's words that, due to Khan's high level, the association would hardly be able to refuse his request. After some thought, Daesung voices his desire to allow his summons to raid portals on their own. Pak is shocked by such a request he can't even answer. There is also an unknown girl keeping an eye on Han Daesung's progress. A girl from the Fortis clan, Ryuso, the 5th in the hunter rankings. Young, with a bob cut and facial piercings, Rue emerges from the room and addresses her father, Jones. The head of the Fortis clan is shocked that his daughter has left her room since she was locked there for 6 months due to her social phobia. The girl tells her father that she has a request. The man is still in shock but does not interrupt his daughter. Meanwhile, many other hunters from other clans are indignant that Khan might take their places. The hunters express their dissatisfaction to the head of the department. The man wearily notes that his worst fears have come true, and in general, no one knew that the main character would deal with all the portals so quickly. The head of one of the small clans says that because of Khan, they can't even pay clan members money normally, because they simply don't sell anything from the portals. The head of the department understands that he can't do anything himself and asks out loud what everyone wants from him. The hunters respond that Khan's rights need to be restricted so that they too have the opportunity to farm portals. The department head decides not to enter into an argument and says that he will try to solve the problem. Meanwhile, Daisung, in his new apartment, plays computer games and doesn't understand why he keeps losing. At some point, his friend Ho calls him. The guy is furious that Khan doesn't pick up the phone the first time, to which the main character replies that he's just busy with important things. Finally, Khan comes to his friend's office and he says that an order has been received to adjust the portal tenders. Ho explains that it will now be possible to raid only certain portals, as Khan has caused many clans trouble. Daisung is not angry and says that he was able to earn a lot of money this way. Ho says that they made a lot of money and thanks to this, he was able to buy this building. Khan voices the idea of raiding only the most valuable portals. Ho thinks to himself that now Han has also developed a business acumen. Ho asks Han about the equipment. The main character wanted to sell it, but his friend says that this is not a very good idea. However, Ho gives the idea to contact Pax, who would help with equipment. Pax is an equipment expert and Huang's friend. Ho immediately says that Huang is now in prison, but Pax can be found in another way. At night, Shinn escapes from the hospital, ready to do anything to return to being a hunter. Many hunters who contacted the department head raided the portal at level C. Sometime later, the portal is cleared and the hunters congratulate each other. At this moment, Jin from the Red Horse clan approaches them. Behind him are other clan members who have been influenced by the boy, so he orders them to attack the hunters. They are preparing for battle against unknown opponents. However, the Red Horse clan soon defeats the group of hunters and Jin uses the power of transformation. Thus, the guy changes his appearance to that of a long-haired hunter. On the news, the presenter talks about missing people all over the country. Han's family is watching the broadcast and Jisoo's mother warns her not to pour anything anywhere for the foreseeable future. At this moment, the brother appears behind the sister and scares the girl, and the mother asks if her son is hungry. The woman asks what Daisung wants, and he replies that he wants a lot of meat. Listening to the news, the main character is surprised by the story of the missing people. Sometime later, a sacrifice takes place in an unknown location. Roman, dressed in ritual clothing, pronounces special words. A moment later, other people in red cloaks appear at the scene and swear an oath to the man. Roman says that it is very good that in Khans there is a person connected with Khan. The man touches the head of one of the people who came and orders him to eliminate Daisung. The man in the red cloak, Jin of the Red Horse clan, is glad that he can take revenge. Sometime later, many people are relaxing on the beach. Suddenly, a portal appears not far above the water and people begin to sound the alarm. The association has already taken measures and called hunters in the military, but a portal over water is always dangerous. The head of the department asks the blonde in glasses if she sent a message to all the hunters, and she confirms it. The girl says that the top 5 are taking part in the tender, and the boss is indignant. What are they thinking about? The girl objects, saying that the conditions are the same for everyone. The man is surprised that the tender conditions are the same. Meanwhile, Seo Dong arrives at the Daisung clan building and Ho nervously receives him. The brunette tells the guy that he will beat around the bush and say everything straight, so Ho listens to him. Han says that he offers to cooperate with his clan of ravens in clearing the portal that has appeared. Ho is embarrassed and doesn't know how to respond. At that moment, Lee Chengshik comes to them, and Ho is shocked that a hunter of such a level has come. Lee turns to Dawn, not understanding why he is there, since he asked for time off to play with the children. Chengshik also offers Ho cooperation with his clan. Chando is even more nervous about the proposal. Meanwhile, Baek Haran, in the Ocean Clan meeting room, says that he wants to help Han as thanks for saving him. The correspondents present at the meeting announce the sensation about Karan Khan's rescue. In the Marble Clan, the deputy head of the clan, Chohan, reports that he informed Khan of his readiness to provide his clan with a new aura weapon. The deputy, Chohan's older brother, adds that he doesn't understand why they would raid the portals, and besides, the other clan leaders have also started to stir. Chohan suddenly says that he wants to see. The brother doesn't understand what the clan leader is talking about, but he explains that he is interested in power beyond S rank. Khan, meanwhile, is busy protecting his loved ones. He takes their most valuable things. The guy implants one summoned creature into each of these artifacts so that they awaken and protect his mother and sister. The summons swear an oath of protection to the master. After this, Daisung leaves the pantheon satisfied. Ru appears before him and asks if the portal is the source of Han's power. Daisung looks at the girl and doesn't understand who she is and where she comes from. She replies that she is from the Fortis clan and gives her name. The guy teases the girl about being a little girl and asks how she knew where to look. The girl approaches the main character. Ryu says that she looks like Daisung and asks him to help her. Khan does not want to listen to the girl and pushes her away. However, suddenly, Ryu disappears. A doll remains in its place and Khan falls into a stupor. Immediately, demonic energy begins to emanate from the toy and the guy recognizes it.